All right, ladies and gentlemen, the worldwide of sports has nothing on Sportswire Radio tonight because we are literally going to cover the gauntlet. Judge, Yankees, Mets, Braves, Jets, Giants, NFL, MLB, poll hosts, you name it. We're going to cover it with three of my guys. That is Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show. Chris Pizzea rocking the Ken Griffey Jr. sweater. Out poetic here, certainly for the weather here in New York. Of course, he is from the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals Show. And the brute force Bradley Weiss, the legendary SJC New York, Golden Eagle, Level Up, Long Island Nets, LI Brew Crew, Plainview JFK Hawks, boys, JV coach. So, without further ado here on the Sports Report, the number one level sports show. Gentlemen, how are we tonight?
Doing good.
Rock and roll.
Well, the Mets fans, I think, tonight aren't doing so good right now because the Mets, unfortunately, are trailing. And certainly, I want to go straight for the jugular because I know we're a little bit behind here. We kind of wanted to see how these games develop. And I'm going right to the brute force Brad Weiss. Mr. Confidence. We're going to get to this moment here against the Braves. We're fine. Everything else is good. We're on basically cloud nine. Everything's going good. And the brute force Brad Weiss, I mean, right now, it looks like the Braves are on the verge of winning here and tying this series. And how are you feeling, of all people right now, Mr. Confidence, the brute force, Brad Weiss?
Oh, I have changed my position on confidence in the team. What I will say, though, is that, the state of Florida just had a state of emergency when it comes to the Hurricane Ian. And by the way, I want to make sure I say hope everybody's doing well down there. Is obviously devastating.
Sure.
I'm going to give my, alert myself. I'm not going to say a state of emergency. We're going to say a state of urgency when it comes to the Mets, all right?
Yeah, I would say Hurricanes right now comparing life and death to baseball. I mean, I say the brute force.
That's where I want to make the difference here because this is not this is not an emergency situation that we're losing tonight. Obviously, we need to win these games, but there should be a state of urgency, and that means that whether we win or lose tonight, which obviously, hopefully, we can make this comeback. There needs to be more urgency in these games because, to the point of Justin, amongst others in the group chat, the team kind of seems a little lifeless after the beginning of the game. I mean, they had good at-bats. They looked like they were ready to go. And then, obviously, one of the biggest concerns is Jacob Degrom. And I think, I'm not overly concerned. Like, he did show us flashes of Degrom, but he showed too many flashes of, I'm going to leave a fat pitch down the middle and I'm going to get crushed. And that's a problem. And you saw that in the last start against the Athletics. You saw that in this start where he's just leaving pitches middle. He's getting, when it was one slider tonight, he got a home run. His fastball has been pretty straight, and he threw a lot down the middle today. And he's not hitting the corners as well as he usually does. So there's got to be a little bit of a concern with DeGrom. I think, we'll see what happens here down the stretch because depending on how things go in this series and going into next week, he might or may not start that last game of the season. But I think right now, as a Met fan, you might want to see him start regardless because we need something to give us some sort of appreciation, not appreciation, but, this is not the normal DeGrom that we're used to. His ERA is north of 3 right now, and he hasn't been great. I
know we're used to him north of 2, and we're talking 3. I mean,
this is not the same guy. So, yes, I'm definitely a little concerned, and I actually think he should take that start Wednesday regardless, just to get himself back on track. But I will say, like I said, I'm still confident in the team. I think there's still reasons to be confident. But tonight, obviously, 3 home runs led up by Degrom, and Max Fried obviously pitched well until he came out of the game. But the Mets put up some good at-bats. They just had some unfortunate double plays. They had some hard-hit balls that the Braves, to their credit, have made some nice plays tonight. So give them a little bit of credit. But overall, you have to have a little more urgency going forward in this series. I think that's the word I want to use tonight.
Absolutely, and let me get to a few comments. First, I want to get to Anthony J. Finkel, who rain-checked on me yesterday with Duffy's because, well, he was with his girl, and obviously I could certainly sympathize, but I'm probably going to have to rain-check on him next Thursday. But in the meantime, shout out to Big Fink. As always love Big Fink. And he says, fellas, happy Friday. We made it. And I didn't think I was going to make it live on the air. And in fact, the gods gave me a bounce finally in life. So I'm very happy about that for now. So big shout out as always to Anthony Finkel. And Rob Maraska, of course, who will be with us at some point in the near and distant future. He's on assignment, says they definitely seem lifeless. Definitely concerned about Degrom. All great stuff. And I want to go to Justin Gianelli before I go to Chris and get the Yankees because I want to talk a lot about the Yankees because they're a big topic as well. Justin, you've hit the nail on the head because, this seems to be a problem with this team, whether they're playing teams like the Braves or bottom feeder teams like the Marlins and even the Pirates at times, where this team, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to come out well in these games and they're behind. And you're almost, even if DeGrom gives up 2 and 3 runs, you're counting on him almost to pitch a perfect game. And we'll see what we get out of Scherzer tomorrow. But, Justin, I do think that this month, this team has kind of really picked the wrong time to kind of put itself on the ropes here when it comes to their tenuous lead for now in the National League East.
Yeah, they're playing. I would say they're playing average baseball. I mean, their record's above 500 this month.
Yeah, well, even since June 1st, the Mets have played like 600 ball, but they just it's just been what it is.
I know people are going to blame the offense tonight that the offense didn't do enough, and clearly, 2 runs on 7 hits, is not acceptable. You need to be scoring more. But I knew runs would be at a premium in this game because of Max Fried on the mound. Now the Mets haven't taken advantage of the fact that Max Fried came out after 5 because he was feeling ill, and haven't really gotten to the bullpen very much. But I mean, look, you're not going to find somebody who supports Jacob Degrom more than me. But his performance tonight was absolutely unacceptable. I'm sorry, you can't give up 3 runs in the biggest start basically since the 2015 World Series. You can't be going out there, and sure, the 6 innings, 11 strikeouts, that's all well and good. But at the same time, you can't be giving up 3 runs. I'm sorry, it's not acceptable. And coming out after 86 pitches, are you kidding me? I mean, what is that? That's somebody who's not our ace anymore. Max Scherzer is the team's ace. I'm sorry, it has to be said. Max Scherzer is the best pitcher on this team. Jacob Degrom looks like a shell of his former self right now. And I know he's still throwing the gas. I know he's still got a very good slider. But he's a shell of his former self right now. And I know that the Braves are all or nothing. But that performance can't happen tonight. It just can't. It's not acceptable. Not in this spot. No. And you know what? I don't like what Buck did. I would have left Chris Bassett to start this game. And that, he's going to start Sunday, obviously. They flipped Degrom and Bassett. I would have left Bassett to start this game. Because right now, I trust Chris Bassett to give me a better performance than Jacob Degrom right now.
Well, I mean, those are some certainly fair points. I'll come back to those. Let me get to a comment from Anthony Finkel, which I definitely do want to acknowledge. And prayers up to my Southwest Florida family. They got slammed by Ian. Total devastation. I've heard some horror stories of people waiting on rooftops to be rescued. I do want to take the time out certainly to acknowledge some people. Obviously, here on Sportswire Radio, there are some people that are close to us, and one of them is an individual named Daniel Slavin. I know Daniel's not down there quite in Southwest Florida, but he's down there in Satellite Park, and I know that he's told me some things out there in Florida, so I do want to take the time out to acknowledge him, and my thoughts and prayers to anybody that's impacted by certainly this horrific storm. And it's unfortunate. We all deal with this stuff, and we dealt with it many years ago, obviously, with Hurricane Irene and certainly Superstorm Sandy, as I like to refer it. I always tell this story all the time of people. I was out there in Garrison Beach in Brooklyn during Superstorm Sandy with then former State Senator Marty Golden, and you could see that the devastation was going to come. So I've certainly been there. I've been in those tense moments, and I certainly want to acknowledge my prayers and thoughts to anybody impacted. Also, Ernest Dove, I want to shout out to as well. I spoke with Ernest, and certainly he's doing well. And Rob Maraska gives us the emoji sign here, I guess, for the prayers. But enough of that here. Let's turn over to the Yankees, Chris, because I want to acknowledge Aaron Judge, because Aaron Judge
coming up to the plate now.
Oh, you know what, though? That's certainly a great timing. So certainly the gods are with us here.
Well, we're going to have to wait a little bit. It looks like Baltimore might be making a pitching change.
Oh, well, never mind then, I guess. But and Joey Bostrom is here, tuned in. Love Joey Bostrom as always. Hey, guys, prayers for Florida. And Chris, let's talk about Aaron Judge. I want to go to I got the Florida prayers. I got my stories of Sandy in there. I want to move on for that for now. I'm trying to get away from the negativity because we're all surrounded by it. But it was pretty special. I got a chance to watch him really right before I was about to go out and enjoy the rest of the evening with Aaron Judge. And special moment. They finally pitched to him. And for you, Chris, I mean, what did it mean to you to see Aaron Judge as a Yankees fan hit that 61st home run the way he did?
No, I think it's just an amazing season he's had. To see anybody hit that many home runs in a season is pretty special. Other than, the steroid years, I mean, they're still in the record book and everything. But if you take those years away, the last time we seen this was Roger Maris doing it, and obviously none of us seen that. None of us are that old. So.
Maybe Rob Maraska, right? Maybe Rob Maraska.
Exactly. Maybe he did. No, I'm kidding. But it's a special season. I don't think the MVP debate I think should be dead by now. He's up now, so we'll see if he could get 62. But it was pretty cool. The one thing I thought that was, I mean, it was nice for him, getting the ball and giving it to his mom. I wish a fan caught it, so at least they could cash in on it because.
Oh, I was hearing it all over the week. Yeah,
you won't need it.
It like hit the tip of that dude's glove.
I know it was. That would have been a nice catch.
We needed the brute force Brad Weiss to make sure he would have caught the ball.
Another couple of inches, maybe. Yeah,
he's got big hands. The brute force Brad Weiss. I've seen those hands. I've covered those hands.
Oh, I would have caught that. Oh, come on.
I know. That's why I brought it up, the brute force Brad Weiss. Trust me. I've seen your hands up close. I've seen you eat. I covered you when you played. You would have caught it. But, look, that's the luck of the draw. But, I mean, certainly a special thing for the Yankees. What I think is so special also, Chris, about Judge, and certainly we'll come back to the Mets and some other things. Albert Pujols, also, it's another home run. I want to talk about Albert Pujols also again. But this Yankees team, again, to me, has turned the corner. And I think that what Judge has done here, to me, I know Ohtani won last night. I know his numbers are up there. It's real special what he's done. But at the end of the day here, for me, looking at Judge, I mean, he carried this team on his back in the month of September. I mean, these stats were unreal. What was it, 9 home runs and like 25 RBIs and the batting average?
All of August.
Yeah.
All of August he carried. I mean, nobody did anything for the last month and a half. Judge was the guy that was carrying this team for the last month and a half. Since the All-Star break, basically, this team has been awful outside of Judge. So, I mean, to me, when you look at most valuable player, it has to be Judge because without Judge, they're not even a playoff team. And if you look at the Angels, with or without Ohtani, they're still a bad team.
They're bottom feeders. They were 70 and 80 going into today.
But you know what, though? I'm going to push back on you. And let me preface this by saying I fully agree Aaron Judge is the MVP because he's having a historic season. Right. I think we need to stop pushing that narrative of what the team is. I don't think it clearly matters anymore. It doesn't. It really goes based on the guy's numbers. I think it's
and he should get it no matter what.
Oh, right? Absolutely. I'm fully in support for Judge winning the MVP as he should, but I think we need to stop pushing the narrative of the fact that what is Team X without player Y. I think those days are out the window. Ohtani, even though he had a historic year last year, won the MVP on a bad Angels team. Alex Rodriguez won a couple MVPs on a last place team. Yep. If you have
Dawson's done it before,
then what does the valuable award means? Like, what does most valuable mean?
It's
most valuable to what?
It's basically giving it to the dude who had the best season.
So it's the best player. So it's basically the best player award, not the most valuable player.
Yeah, essentially, that's what it's turned itself into. Now, this year you don't have a debate. As great as Ohtani's been, it's Judge far and away. He's got 61 home runs. So
and he might win the Triple Crown too. I mean, there's no question.
Right. That's what I mean.
So, but I think that narrative has basically pushed itself out the window. But Judge's stats are just way too.
But that's why they have the other award, right? The Hank Aaron Award. That's like the best hitter or most outstanding player.
I was gonna get that.
So, and then that's what I think Ohtani should get. Ohtani should get most outstanding player because listen, he probably is the best player in the league. If you want to, if you want to break it down,
there is a point to argue there. Yeah, I mean, I could certainly sympathize. I mean, the fact what he's done. I mean, you think about in other sports. I mean, hockey, you don't get a goaltender who plays forward. I mean, in basketball, you don't play, you don't coach and play. I mean, so there's a number of different ways here. But before I get to the brute force's take on it, I think I want to bring up Brian Murphy here because he says Mets are a joke, choked a 10.5 game lead in the division. I want to go right to the brute force because he's shaking his head.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Oh boy.
Do you feel that way, the brute force side?
Oh my God. This comment, listen, Brian Murphy, I appreciate you watching the show. I see you got a Tampa Bay Buccaneers sweatshirt there you got.
Yeah, your quarterback really doesn't look that great right now. I mean, and I'm not anti-Brady, but
I mean, his age.
This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, first of all, if you guys saw the graphic during the game where the Braves are like 64 and like 32, I want to say, in their last couple of games. The Mets have lost 41 games. Right?
Oh, I said it last week. I've said it week after week. The Mets have played about 600 balls since June 1st.
I mean,
that's pretty good.
That's not choking a division. That's not choking. The Mets have played almost any other division, right? Maybe besides the Dodgers, right, and the Astros. But, any other team or any other division, right, the Mets would be gone already. Like, it wouldn't even be close. So, I mean, the fact that people are saying that they choked the lead, they did not choke. If you want to argue that maybe they shouldn't have put themselves in this position because they lost to so many teams, right, under 500, like the Nationals and the Cubs, like if you want to argue that they shouldn't be as close, sure, you could say that. Okay, but if you are going to tell me that they choked a 10.5 game lead, like you want to imply like last year, year before, right, when they supposedly choked, which they did more of that year, okay, this is not a choke.
And the brute force certainly choked on his Wi-Fi connection there because we've lost him.
So let me piggyback off him then, because you know what, the Braves for 3 months played 700 baseball.
I know we spoke about it here the whole year.
Sustainable, but clearly they found a way to sustain it. Only recently have they really kind of not. They kind of been up and down. They're 10-8 in their last 18, and the Mets are 15-10 this month. That's a winning percentage of 600.
600, yep.
They were 19-11 in August, a 633 winning percentage. 17-8, a 680 winning percentage in July. Okay, they were basically 500. They were 13-12 in June. But
we talked about June. We had the big West Coast trip. That was that long trip.
Yeah, they had an extremely tough schedule in the month of June, and they handled it pretty well, honestly. The Braves just went on this insane run, including a 14-game winning streak that closed the gap extremely.
And they had another winning streak after that later on. That they had a 9 or 10 game winning streak.
They've had multiple long winning streaks. They've certainly had multiple long winning streaks.
It happens. I mean, listen, at this point, I mean, at the end of the day here, and Anthony Finkel says here, choked on his Wi-Fi, LOL, with the jokes. Yes, I mean, he did choke on his Wi-Fi. I mean, poor brute force Brad Weiss. So I think hopefully it's not hurricane related, but certainly he did choke on his Wi-Fi. I'm sure that we'll have him here come back. And also, I want to say, I'd say maybe about a half hour or so, we'll run through the NFL games. I want to get the picks in. I want to do all that because I want to get the brute forces standings in. So we'll do all that here. Figure about half hour or so here on Sportswire Radio. We'll also do some MLB scores in a few minutes. But I also want to go back to Albert Pujols because I could talk about the Mets. They're going to be on here for a little while longer. So we'll definitely, I'm sure, come back to the Mets. And obviously, as Justin pointed out, I believe in our Sportswire Radio group on Twitter, Albert Pujols strikes yet again. And what a second half he had. I mean, what do we got there, Justin?
Can we stop hitting Mark Canha, please?
Well, unfortunately, they hit him and didn't sound like they did too good. But
his new name he's gonna have to change his name in the offseason to Magnet Canha.
Well, I'll tell you what. Certainly, Eduardo Escobar hit quite a bit in September, and some other Mets certainly have gone through the motions. But and Rob Maraska says he is a magnet, so Rob Maraska certainly agrees. But let's go on a lighter note for everybody. Albert Pujols strikes again here. It's his 700th first home run, and what a season! You think about it in a historical standpoint, and this will be for everybody, Chris, and when the brute force comes in, he's going to end his career on probably almost as good a season you're going to get here. 22 home runs. He's averaging a home run less than every 14 or so at bats. His second half has been one of the better ones. And I mean, Justin, talk about 701 and just kind of the just special season we've seen here from King Albert.
I mean, I'm lost for words, honestly. I mean, what he has done in the second half of the season has been utterly remarkable because he has we went from the conversation of, oh, he might not get it to, wait a minute, he's closing the gap to, oh my God, he's going to do it, to, we're on the air last Friday night. Yep. He hit 699 and 700. So, I mean, what he has done, I mean, if you look at over the last 28 days, he's got 6 home runs and 17 RBIs. I mean, his
OPS is over 1,000 in the second half. I mean,
he's been tremendous. He has 14 home runs since August 1st. He hit 3 home runs in July. I'm not sure how many. Oh,
I believe he's in the top. He's in the top 5 in home runs in all of baseball since August 1st.
Yeah, he now has 16 home runs since the All-Star break, and he's batted over 300 since the All-Star break. So, I mean, what Albert Pujols has done is nothing short of amazing at his age, and it really is making for one of the great final seasons of a career with, you know, with his age and the longevity of his career.
Absolutely, no question about that there. And the Mets are in business right now, Justin. I hear it in the background.
Yep. First and third, one out. You got a Jeff McNeil single. Canada took second on defensive indifference, so you got runners on the corners. And look, Jansen's the one guy in the bullpen I feel like the Mets can score off of. And you know what? The right guy at the plate. Eduardo Escobar is batting.
I mean, 24 RBIs in this month of September.
It's really hard to expect him to come through every single time, but you feel that confidence in him that he's going to be able to get it done.
And
by the
also,
way, I'm interested to see what they do next because Francisco Alvarez is due up next. Are they going to let the kid hit in that big spot? I don't know that they will.
Well, I mean, it's a good call here, and
he is on deck. I will say he is on deck.
Who's your options to pinch hit for him?
You could go with Vogelbach. Naquin's in the game because they pinch hit Vientos for Guillorme. So we got a couple of guys who are out of the game.
Vogelbach.
You may as well let the kid go, you know?
I think so. I think so because you know what? I think Buck is thinking, even though he's a rookie in his first game, you know what my thinking is and what Buck's thinking might be? He's got the chance to tie the game. He's got that power. You know,
we saw his second half, and that's why he's here.
Absolute raw power where he can hit moonshots. So it'll be interesting to see what Buck does and what situation he comes up in. He might come up with the bases loaded. We got 3-1 now. Kenley Jansen just threw a ball in the dirt.
Well, we'll certainly find out here for sure, and also want to give some scores for an update here. Orioles 2, Yankees 1, top of the 9th. Rays 6, Astros 2, Cardinals 2, Pirates 1, going to the bottom of the 6th. Guardians 6, Royals 3 today. Blue Jays 8, Red Sox. Listen, we're going to get to them. Twins 7, Tigers nothing, top 8. We also have here Brewers 1, Marlins nothing. Oh, there you go, Justin. You called it. And White Sox, Padres, top of the 2nd, scoreless. Rangers, Angels, scoreless. Mariners 1, A's 0, as the Mariners are trying to finally break their postseason drought. And the Rockies, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, and Giants have not yet started.
And you know, if the Astros win or if the Yankees lose, the Astros clinch the number 1 seed in the AL. Yep. And I just want to offer my services to Brute Force. Next Friday, if he wants, he could come and sit with me. So he has a pretty good Wi-Fi. I'll put a chair for him. He can sit with me if he wants.
I want to go off the topic on this because some people are going to chuckle hearing this. I mean, I don't get it. He's not like he's in the boondocks. It's not like he's in I don't know, like Wyoming or Montana.
That far away. Me and Justin and him.
I get good service when I'm out by him.
We're always
I don't get
miles
it.
of each other, so I don't get it.
Listen, I interview a lot of wrestlers in England, and even in England, they have a known issue with like internet connection, and their Wi-Fi seems to be better than the brute forces. I just don't get it. I mean, I hope for a speedy recovery here for the brute force and his Wi-Fi connection. Certainly, we offer our prayers and hopes that he returns. I'm sure he'll be trying to as we speak. But Chris, I do want to speak about Albert Pujols and get your thoughts, because I know you guys spoke a little bit about it in the Talking Rival show. I enjoyed the show this week. I got to listen to it a couple of different times, and always love what you and Patrick bring to the table. But I mean, what a run here! What a second half! I mean, I think about players who are going to go out and end their careers. This is one of the at least better second half, if not seasons, a player is going to have while they're going out.
Oh, absolutely, and we've been saying it. I mean, this is something that we're not going to see ever, not for a long time. 700 home runs, like we were saying it, I think last week. I don't think there's a player that's playing right now in baseball that's going to do it. So I mean, to do 700 home runs, this is something we're not going to see. So it's great to see history. I mean, what Judge is doing is great, but that's something that we might see happen again in our lifetime. We may not see 700 again in our lifetime.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
Judge is what, 230-ish, right? About 230-ish,
yeah.
Something like that.
But I'm saying, not that Judge is going to get 7, but what Judge is doing, the 62 or whatever he ends up with,
yep.
I think that could happen again. I don't think that's far off.
I mean, I guess theoretically Stanton would be the only person with an outside shot right now. I think Stanton, theoretically, because he's got the high number of home runs. I mean, theoretically, I guess he would have a shot. I don't know, but you're right, though. And again, only a handful of people have gotten to 700, and what Pujols and what Judge has done.
Now, where's Stanton? Is he in the 3s or in the 4s?
I think he's in the high 3s, but the crack staff here is actually on it as we speak here. That's why
375.
That's what I thought. That's what the crack staff thought here, 375. And looking at his body of work, I mean, he's got a shot. I don't know if he'll get there. He's going to be 33 on November the 8th. So, I mean,
he's not going to get there. And maybe he's got good candidate for 500, but
I think he should hit 500.
Yeah. If he doesn't hit 5, something went really wrong with him.
Well, he does have a history of injury.
Let's see if we have him here. The brute force Brad Weiss, are you finally back with us here? Or it looks like you were
he's back out again.
I mean, boy, the poor guy at this point. I mean,
maybe we can just do audio with him.
Can we just do it's up to him if he wants to do. We can do anything here he wants.
It's not like you could hear him though.
Well, he froze, so I mean,
maybe without video, it might. You know what I mean? Maybe he'll get a connection or something. I don't know.
You know what? I mean, it depends on everybody. It depends. Listen, there are a number of factors. If you want to get real technical, which I really don't think I've ever done already. Well, we used to do call-ins, but unfortunately, my phone and the connector that I have to do the call-ins aren't what they used to be up to speed. But we can work on that. But I will say, to be technical, it could be an issue on how many people are using his internet and the people around him. But that's technical. We'll go back to all that. But you know what? I heard somebody speak about the Cleveland Guardians, and I do want to speak about the Cleveland Guardians for a second. As we'll get the brute force back in here, we'll do final thoughts on the Mets, I'm sure, should the game end here shortly. But, I mean, the Cleveland Guardians, what a special season. What a second half. It was a team that I think, Chris, you said the stat in the Talking Rivals show, were 4 games out of first place and wound up clinching their division before the Yankees did, if I'm not mistaken here. I mean, that's a pretty special feat here. And this was a team, I mean, Terry Francona, you know what? I know he's a great manager. He's going to Cooperstown. But if I said to you guys, this might have been his best managerial job yet, what would you guys say?
I would probably agree with you. I mean, I think they also broke the record with most rookies played. I think 18 or 16. I forgot what the exact number was.
Francona was on MLB radio. This was Wednesday, and I was listening to him talk about this team. And normally managers kind of don't like to see the, they don't like to clinch with champagne and all that stuff because they're superstitious. But he was like, nope, just do it. Go ahead. This was his team that we didn't, you could tell that in the enthusiasm that he had for the team, and that's kind of why I had brought up with Francona just what a job he did. I mean, everybody said the White Sox were going to run away with this division, yet it was the Guardians that ran away with it.
Right. Now, what was it, though? Was it Cleveland running away with it, or was it the White Sox totally, if you want to get back to the
meltdown?
They really choked it big time, I thought. I mean, I don't think there was a person.
Well, the Guardians played the Twins and White Sox that 2 weeks pretty much in a round robin. And what did they win? Like 10 of those 11 games or something like that? Yeah. It was just like an off the hook number. I mean,
but it's amazing. And then when you look at that team, it's like, do they really scare you? If you look at them, if you look at their lineup, other than Jose Ramirez.
Ramirez.
Other than that, there's really nobody on that lineup that you're really afraid of. They got pretty good pitching, yeah. Pretty good rotation, good back end with Clase, yeah. But their lineup is not, great. But that's a team that, they could get into the playoffs and steal a series with that pitching and with the back end of the ball.
Listen, remember the Nationals in 2019? Nationals make the playoffs, the last day of the season and wind up winning the World Series. You just never know. I mean, there are teams.
Yeah. They had to win the wild card game against Milwaukee.
Yep.
Before beating the Dodgers in the NLDS.
Yep. You just never know. I mean, listen, you never know. But I want to come back to the Brute Force Brad Weiss, and I hate to be facetious and joking around a bit, but did you choke on your Wi-Fi? Did somebody not pay the Wi-Fi bill? Because I don't understand. Help me out with this, because I was telling the guys here, the American listeners of Sportswire Radio, I interview a lot of wrestlers. I'm sure you're aware of in England, and in England they're known for internet problems, but even they don't have it as bad as you do each week. I mean, what's the deal?
It's brutal. It's brutal. I actually, to be honest with you, Tom, I had it good for 2 weeks, and I think it was Anthony.
I know the last couple of weeks you were great, but this week was
I think Anthony Finkel jinxed it last week. And
Anthony Finkel, you know what? His girl was cooking for him yesterday, so that's probably why he's in a jovial mood. So that's probably
unfortunately, Brad's Wi-Fi is doing the tomahawk chop right now.
I mean. The Hurricane Ian must have hit my Wi-Fi. I have no idea. I mean, I can't figure this stuff out. But I'm here right now, and let's hope I can stay.
Please.
All right, so I want to come back and talk about some different things that we spoke about. And obviously, I do want to get to the NFL picks in a little while here, because I want to run through the games. People like that stuff, and I think people kind of want to see how we do. And I want to kind of see how everybody did this past week, because I don't think you posted it on our Facebook group and some of the other groups that we're on. But when it comes to a season like an Aaron Judge, and I know you've played with some teammates that have had big years and big careers and such, but I mean, I almost felt like in a lot of ways it should be hands down he's the American League MVP. And there was a discussion that myself and Justin and Chris had kind of about this whole debate about the most valuable player, and should it be the best player? Should it be the player with the most stats? And I always go back to it, the brute force, and I think about it and say that it should be the player that's on a team that won the most games. And right now, Aaron Judge and the Yankees have won, the second most games, and they're going to be in the postseason. And I think that he should have a clear edge here over Shohei Ohtani. And what's your thoughts on that whole idea of the most valuable player? Because you have a little bit of insights on this, because you played with a guy like Frank Basile.
Yeah, well, before I had gotten cut off there, Justin and Chris both made really good points about this. And I really liked where Chris took it, because, the angle of most valuable player, and I totally agree with Justin, because the definition of most valuable player has changed for a bad reason. And I simply don't like it, because when you talk about value of a player, there's a lot of things that go into value, right? I'm going to be honest with you, Tom Bryce, okay? I thought that I was going to be the best defensive player in the Skyline one year.
That half a year you had, we're talking 2019, right? That 2018.
There are many people that thought I earned that honor. But who got it in the end? The guy who won more games.
I know.
Ultimately, that has kind of become, right, how it goes a little bit. Like you have to win. But at the same time, now in baseball, you don't have to win. You could be a losing player, right? And you could still, be, quote unquote, the best potential player or best season, right? But does it really mean as much as a guy who literally, as Chris said, has carried this team almost the entire season, right? Is doing multiple things at a very high level. And I know, and it's hard because Shohei Ohtani obviously does it in a way that we've never seen in a long time. He talks about his pitching. I mean, he almost threw a no-hitter last night.
Got a 2.35 earned run average. I mean, he got 15 wins.
He's a high-level hitter. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I do agree with Chris when it comes to him getting an award for best player or best player of the season. But if you're talking about most valuable player, right, that comes down to what did you do to help the team win, and what is your value to the team? And without you, what is the value of the team without you? And ultimately, without Aaron Judge, the Yankees, I think, wouldn't be in the playoffs. I think they actually would I think they could have actually really fell off. But Aaron Judge really held.
Oh, especially in the second half, because that month, I think Chris had pointed it out, that month of August, the Yankees were really treading water.
I think they were below 500 in August.
Oh, they were definitely below 500.
No Judge, what would have happened without them? With the Yankees, I mean. So for me, it's obvious, for my definition of most valuable player, and I think it's Aaron Judge, but I totally agree with Justin, and I understand why people are picking Shohei Ohtani, because the definition has changed. And when the definition has changed, some people are taking it as who is the best overall player in the game this year. And yes, you still might say that's Ohtani, but the best performer and the guy who was most valuable to his team is Aaron Judge, and I think that's no debate in my mind. But there's plenty of people out there picking Ohtani for the MVP.
All right, well, let me ask you guys, and before I get to obviously thoughts here on Mets loss and Anthony Finkel's comment, last week was definitely my worst week for picks. Well, I'm sure my week wasn't very good either, but I'm sure Brad will be very happy to remind some of us of that. But, I mean, when it comes to, let's say, the National League MVP discussion, where Pete Alonso and Paul Goldschmidt seem to be head and shoulders the two leading candidates. I mean, for you guys, do you guys see one candidate that might have an edge over the other, or what do you all three think?
I'll be honest. Looking at their numbers, they're all pretty close. I don't think there's a clear-cut number one guy. Me and Justin were talking about it a little bit. Their numbers are close. Goldschmidt is a much better defender, and I'm not saying Alonso is not a good defender. But sure. I think Goldschmidt has one error in over 1,000, attempts or whatever you want to call it. So, compared to like 8 for Alonso in like 800 or 900. So, but I mean, I don't think that should be the deciding thing that puts Goldschmidt above, him. And also Goldschmidt has not been good this last month of the season. If you look at his numbers. When you look at him compared to the other guys that are going for the MVP, he's much lower than those guys. So, and I would think this is when the most valuable players should step it up, right? In September, coming down the stretch to try to get into the playoffs and stuff. So I think it's going to be a toss-up. I don't think it's going to be, Goldschmidt. Maybe before September started, Goldschmidt be the.
I remember when I asked this question. I think in July, and I think Goldschmidt had a clear edge, but Alonso in the second half was kind of definitely narrowed the gap. For you, Justin, you have a interest in that or a thought? What do you think?
I don't think one bad month should really disqualify Goldschmidt from the MVP, but you could definitely argue that Pete Alonso's made a massive charge because he's had a great month of September, and he leads the National League in runs back. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think he even has more RBIs than Aaron Judge right now by like 2 or 3.
Yep. He passed him earlier this week.
And only Kyle Schwarber has more home runs in the National League. He's got 42. Pete's got 40. And sure, his OPS is a little bit lower because his batting average is lower. Pete doesn't draw a ton of walks, but I mean, if we're using that as our determination for MVP, I mean, what are we doing here? He's got 40 home runs and 131 RBIs, and
even in Met history, you're talking about the most RBIs in the team's history from a single season. You're talking about home runs. He's
scored 92 runs. He scored 92 runs this year.
And the lineup, I mean, I know we spoke about the lineup and beating it with a dead horse, but at times this lineup, it really hasn't been that great. I mean, they've had runs. I would say they've been a streaky team offensively this year. Certainly, they're in
not really. I mean, you got to remember the Mets have scored the 4th most runs in baseball.
I know. Well, I remember in June they had scored the second most. I got that, but in terms of the overall players, like Escobar's had a really, really streaky season. I mean, Canada's had his moments. I mean, McNeil's probably been the most consistent one. Lindor has certainly been streaky. Peter's been streaky. I mean, Marte, I think, has also been probably pretty consistent, but a lot of these guys as a whole have been really streaky. And then the Brute Force Brad Weiss, I got to get your comment on this because obviously everybody wants to hear from the Brute Force Brad Weiss while we have you. God willing, fingers crossed, right? Sign of the cross here. The Wi-Fi said, because I'm a reverend, I can do the sign of the cross. But, I mean, Goldschmidt or Alonso, I mean, who do you think wins it?
Yeah, I think this race has gotten a lot closer than people had thought about, like you said, starting at the beginning of this month. I think, going into this month, like everybody was saying, I think Goldschmidt had the upper hand because all his numbers were better for the most part. But last time I checked, it's the word consistency matters. And I think that one thing that Pete Alonso has done is he's been consistent all year. When it comes to home runs, when it comes to RBIs, when it comes to not going on one of those cold streaks. He's really done a good job of not, having a sustained run of struggling. And Goldschmidt has certainly shown this month that he's not playing at the same level as he was earlier in the season. To Justin's, point, I understand, that shouldn't be an indictment on him. You can't just forget about what he's done the rest of the season or before this. But ultimately, you also have to take that into effect when you make the final decision on one or Alonso or Goldschmidt. And I think consistency also matters. We talked about value to the team. That's where this comes in a little bit harder because both Goldschmidt and Alonso have been big reasons why both of the teams have had a lot of success. But one team has had more success than the other. So for me, and I'm trying to be unbiased, but for me, I think it should be Pete Alonso. And I know that the batting average is one thing that people go after, but you see everything else this guy has done. And with the RBIs, with his home runs, I think he ultimately deserves it. I know fielding matters as well, but he's been good there too. He hasn't been maybe better than Goldschmidt, but he's been
well. He's improved on that, and if I remember correctly, before the start of last year, we were on the air. At least some of us, I believe we were still doing it before as a podcast. And one of the things I think we said, you might have said this, the Brute Force, and I know Ernest Dove did at the time when he was on with us regularly, that Pete had said he really wanted to work hard to improve his fielding. And I think over time he has done that. So I think that is something to keep in mind. But I will say, giving my 2 cents, giving my objective, unbiased opinion, sports writers around the country will certainly have a New York bias when it comes to a close race like this. And I think that Goldschmidt will get the award. That's just my 2. I could be totally wrong on this, but I'm going to go say sports writers across the country, like I said, tend to be not so favorable to New York, and especially for whatever reason, the Mets don't win this division. Something tells me here Goldschmidt will get the edge here. And before we move on here to the NFL, and obviously, unfortunately, the Mets have lost here, so the National League East is tied right now, currently as we speak, and the Mets and Braves will resume their 3-game series tomorrow night with Max Scherzer on the mound here for the Mets as well, and both teams will also play the last Sunday night game of the season here on ESPN as well. So certainly you're going to see both these teams in prime time for sure. And Yankees, I know we're trailing 2-1 last we had on Sportswire Radio. But for you guys here as a whole, any other MLB stories that you're watching? I know the Brute Force, you've got one. And that's, of course, something I do have to give you credit on. And I think you know where I'm going with this. That's the Philadelphia Phillies, because they are certainly doing their own choke job here. Yeah, they're choking. Yes. So the Brute Force, yes. You know what? You, band. You know what? You were right, the Brute Force. So, you know what? I doubt you. I've known you all these years. We poke fun at each other. You poke the bear sometimes. And you know what? Maybe in this case, I poked the bear a little much. And maybe, just maybe, the Brute Force, maybe you knew all along and maybe you had it. So you tell us why.
Well, first of all, as John Gonzalez and others have said, I have to watch myself because the state of Pennsylvania is about to go nuts on me because one side is the Phillies, the other side is the Steelers, and I trash these teams probably more than any other team.
Yeah, you really shouldn't step into Pennsylvania these days. I'll tell you that much.
I probably should stay away. But ultimately, the Phillies are doing exactly what I thought they would. and they're finding a way, right? And again, I'm not right yet because they still have that position right now, but they certainly don't look like they're going to hold on. They continue to struggle. They lost to, I'm not saying it's a bad thing because the Mets lost to the Cubs.
Oh, the Mets got swept to the Cubs. The Met fans can't talk about the Phillies losing to teams like the Nationals.
No, I mean, we can't say a damn word. But what I will say is, the Mets are obviously 40 games over 500. The Phillies are not. And since
I agree with you there.
And since the Bryce Harper's been back, they've had their ups. But guess what? Just when it matters most, which is Bryce Harper's specialty, when it matters most, what does the team do? They become mediocre and they become like a 500 team. That's kind of what Bryce Harper's career has been, right? They're a 500 mediocre average team when he's in the lineup, and they're continuing to do that. And I'm telling you right now, whether they make it or not, they're still not going to get that far. Why? Because this is the way that it always goes with Bryce Harper. On any team he's been on, right, they squeak in sometimes, and they don't. They're average. Okay, and when they do, they fall apart. And that's ultimately because of many different reasons. But I'll say, and I've said it before, his leadership is bad. And I'll say it over and over again. He's not a good leader, okay? This team doesn't seem to be playing baseball at a high level right now. They don't seem to be no energy. Like I watch some of these highlights of Philly games, no energy. They don't really seem to care enough, right? And that's all Bryce Harper. He's the best player. He's paid like the best player. And he certainly does not show up like the best player. Maybe he does individually sometimes, but as a leader, he don't show up. And ultimately, if the Phillies ultimately lose and do not make the wild card, that is an epic. You want to talk about collapses? I'm not saying it's epic like, in a big sense, but I'm saying them not making that wild card spot, considering how the Brewers have played for this long period of time.
Yeah, the Brewers really haven't done anything that's
they
really
haven't done anything special either. They've been hovering around 10 games over 500. They haven't done anything to knock your socks off.
And by the way, we got ourselves a developing situation right now.
We're talking about the wild card team.
So the Milwaukee Brewers have a
1-0, right?
The Brewers have a 1-0 lead, top of the ninth, but Devin Williams has put the first two men on base, and it's 2 on, nobody out.
And the Phillies, now were the Phillies postponed tonight? Correct me if I'm wrong.
They won in the afternoon. It was a doubleheader today. Their second game got rained out. They won 5-1 today. They're currently hold a 1-game lead over the Brewers. They're set to play a doubleheader tomorrow.
Wow. Oh, boy. I think that's going to go down. That's going to definitely go down to the last day of the season. That's going to be a very, very intriguing race there. I mean, for both you guys, Chris and Justin, I mean, anything else that stands out so far in this season as we kind of put a wrap on it from the regular season standpoint before we transition to some other things here on Sportswire?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how Seattle does in the postseason. Right now they're in that jockeying position. Toronto,
Tampa.
Toronto's a 2-game lead, I think, for the top wild card, but then Tampa and Seattle are neck and neck right now, and it'll be interesting to see what matchup they get. And it's the first time in 21 years that the Mariners have made the postseason, and it's going to be a fascinating run for them. They just got Julio Rodriguez off the IL, so. They look poised. They got good pitching. They have a good back end of the bullpen. They're going to definitely be a dangerous team.
Yeah, for you, Chris, anything else that stands out for us here on Sportswire Radio before we transition over to some football?
For me, the Dodgers, I know they're dominating and having such a great season, but for me, like their bullpen, especially the back end, like you don't know who their closer is. And to go into the playoffs as the number one team overall, not just in your own league, but in both leagues, to go into the playoffs without a set, basically got a committee. I don't know. I've never been a fan of closer by committees. They hardly ever work. Listen, maybe they work this year with the Dodgers, but that to me is where the Mets have the advantage. And I've said that before. Even if the Mets, worst case scenario, they don't win their division and they have to play the Dodgers in that divisional round, right? If they get through the wild card and they got to place them in the divisional round, that's not the worst case.
Do you know what they got to put in? They have to win the wild card round too.
Yeah, no, I know. They'll definitely have the wild card. That's going to be easy. I think they'll run over whoever they play there. But
I don't know about that. They might get matched up with San Diego, and San Diego's clearly capable.
San Diego beat the Mets 4 out of 6 this year. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
By the way, we have some developing information that Buck Showalter just revealed to the media. So a lot of people were questioning why Jacob Degrom came out after 86 pitches in 6 innings. Apparently, he was developing a blood blister on one of his fingers, and so they pulled him from the game.
Oh, what a surprise there. What a surprise. Something has to happen there with Jacob Degrom. Boy, everyone talks about Judge in the offseason. I am very curious to see what happens in the offseason with Jacob Degrom in the New York Mets. I'm just going to say it. I mean, I'm not going to say – I don't think it's a slam dunk. I mean,
there's
that's
a lot of
definitely
talk about him not wanting to come back to New York, right? Did I hear that or no?
Yeah, there's been rumblings. I mean, he says all the right things, kind of like Judge does, but you really don't know.
No, you don't. Exactly.
Well, Judge, I think, also is have an historic season, and people are just going to be really, really mad here. Now, again, Jacob Degrom is the New York Mets. Very similar. I agree with you, Justin, on that. But, I mean, you haven't seen much of the guy here these last couple of years. I mean, it's, hard to break the bank, as some might say. And one of the things I did want to point out to one of our listeners wanted to remind me when it came to Aaron Judge and the situation with the Yankees, that the Yankees are going to have about $30 million come off the books when it comes to Zach Britton and Aroldis Chapman. So maybe that's the money that you use to pay Judge. I mean, that's
definitely part of it too. I mean, and Yankees had their own developing situation. Britton left with left arm fatigue tonight.
Yes, I saw that. I was actually watching that. Yep.
I didn't think he was going to be good for the postseason anyway. He was just coming back. This was only his second or third appearance.
It's not warmed up. He's not fully kind of warmed up yet.
Kind of rushed back. So, and to me with Judge, listen, it's going to come down to, does he want to retire a Yankee? That's come down to, because someone's going to offer him just as much or maybe even more than the Yankees. And he's going to have to make a decision. If he's a mama's boy, he's probably going to go to San Francisco, right?
Anthony Faithful.
I think Anthony's already
Faithful.
Are we putting bets in? What's the odds that he goes to San Fran?
You know what? I heard that today. I was walking by and somebody says to me, "Oh, they go on about Judge," and I said, "Well, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see with the Yankees, and I'm trying to take the political way out." And he goes, "I'm telling you, those Giants." The ballpark, he's from it. I'm like, yeah, I've heard it. I get it. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different things here.
Think about his family's there. His wife's family's there. It makes sense for him to go back. So it's going to come down to, does he want to live near his family or does he retire a Yankee? And I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I don't know I don't know what he's thinking. I want to go home.
I want to say it was either the Daily News or the Post that put the odds on him still as the Yankees were the front runners to bring Judge back. But I don't know.
I'm sure they are.
But right now, he will be a free agent after the season here, whenever it ends for the New York Yankees. And we are here on Sportswire Radio, and our season's not ending by a long shot here. And we're speaking with 3 of my guys here. That includes the man who currently still has Wi-Fi at the moment. His name is the Brute Force, Bradley Weiss. And, of course, the legendary Brute Force, who's from a number of different programs in basketball things. And it still looks like to me he shaved a little bit here. And, of course, he does a great job for us here for a long time. And, of course, Chris Bezea, really admiring the Ken Griffey Jr. sweater there, because I was looking through my baseball card binders, and, of course, Ken Griffey Jr.
Baseballism.
Yep. Ken Griffey Jr., one of my all-time favorites to this day, and he was always one of my favorites as a child growing up, and I still admire him to this day. And, of course, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show. And also, one more thing on Ken Griffey Jr., he would have definitely hit 700-plus home runs and some if he didn't have all those injuries throughout the 2000s. So I would say that would have been the guy. That might have been the guy.
630?
I think it was in the low 600s. It was definitely in the low. He really tailed off. I mean, his career. He was at one point a 300 lifetime hitter. I think he only finished at like 284 or like 283. Like his career after he left the Mariners was definitely not the career. Yep, 630 home runs. Thank you. You were correct, Justin. And a 284 lifetime average. I was correct. But those numbers, while they're impressive.
More by injury, though.
That was my point. I'm looking at it here. He really had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years where he missed significant time. And that was kind of
2002, 70 games, 03, 53 games, 83 games in 04. even 111 games in 01. That's missing 50 games.
Yep. Yeah, he just
2 months.
Unfortunately, that's one of those things where you look back and say it was maybe that was not the right trade. I always look at it in a way, and again, Chris will kill me for this. I'm not a Rangers fan by a long shot, but I always thought it was weird seeing Messier as a Vancouver Canuck, and I always looked at Ken Griffey Jr. as a Cincinnati Red. Just was way too weird for me. But that's all great stuff here in the meantime. But I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Also want to shout out Rob Maraska, who was in the chat. Also Anthony Finkel, Joey Bosham. And I also promised a shout out. I'd like to give a shout out to my very good friend, longtime supporter of Sportswire Radio, and technically one of the first guests ever in Sportswire Radio history. And his name is Joshua Bailey from beautiful Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. He's going to kill me for saying this, but Ovington Avenue's own Joshua Bailey, of course, beautiful Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, Mr. Joshua Bailey, who somewhere probably has either a video on YouTube or Snapchat or something of him, in one of those old videos of him going around there and doing something from his days at Our Lady of Angels Church, and certainly Xavier High School, the proud product of Xavier High School, Mr. Joshua Bailey. Want to wish him a very, very happy birthday, because I believe he turns the big 25 today, so I promised him a shout out. Thank you, Mr. Joshua Bailey, for all of your support and friendship of Sportswire Radio. I don't think I've run into you in a while. I think it's been a while. I think you owe me a visit to Duffy. So I think, Joshua Bailey, you come over the Verrazano Bridge from beautiful Bay Ridge. You come to Duffy's. I'll make sure you have a burger on me. So take it. Receipts on me. I'm expecting to see you. Either way, I'll definitely run into you soon. Obviously, he's a huge Yankees fan. I know that maybe we'll catch a ball game together, maybe in beautiful Bay Ridge, Brooklyn as well. So I wanted to acknowledge him as well. And of course, if you like what you hear from us on Facebook, please give us a like at Sportswire Radio, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. You can also check us out on YouTube at Sportswire Radio, where we're closing in on 100 subscribers. So I thank everybody for that. Also want to thank everybody that has bought a t-shirt from us here on Sportswire Radio. So thank you, everybody, for all that. CP7NY on Twitter, Instagram, JGNLE91, and 20, Brad Weiss 20, and Bradley Weiss, and Snapchat Bradley Weiss. Well, we'll plug all that later on, but I wanted to throw that out there. But gentlemen, it's that time. I want to get to it. A lot of people want to hear it, and that is football. And in the words of Hank Williams Jr., are you ready for some football? The brute force Brad Weiss on cue right there, and read it and weep for us on how we are doing in terms of our standings, and the Brewers win. So, Brad Weiss, you are a lucky son of a gun, because the Brewers closed that gap to a half a game. And I see here that you are in second place in the standings, and tell us all about it.
Yeah, so first of all, it was an interesting week last week for everybody, because the picks were out of control. But I will say, I want to congratulate, because certainly Chris Pizzea knows how to pick. I'm telling you guys, if you want to listen to anybody picking these games, you want to listen.
I listen to him every day on Sportswire Radio. I play the guy on baseball. I play the guy on football. The guy's voice literally is in my head more than my own voice at this point.
No, because 2 of the 3 weeks, week 1 and week 3, Chris has led in wins. Week 2, Tom Bryce got the most wins. So
I got the wait. Who got the most wins in week 3?
Week 2, it was you.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, I didn't get the most wins.
3, Chris has won the most games. So, Chris is doing a great job. But the one guy you definitely shouldn't be listening to is John Gonzalez. All right, because John Gonzalez, he just wants to continue to go against my theories. All right, but he's still trailing me. But everybody's in the race here. So,
I got a gripe with Brad, because our records don't match up.
I listen.
Uh-oh.
I got corrections. I ain't perfect. So
check the records.
I know I got John Gonzalez right. That's what matters. John Gonzalez.
Well, I'm tied with Anthony Finkel, so I'm not surprised that Anthony Finkel and I, because I think Anthony and I were speaking about this off the air.
Justin, so I'm not surprised. The rest of the year under protest here.
Hey, listen, you know what? If I see Justin's got the notebook out.
I have all the scores written down. I do this with my family too.
Hey, listen, you know what? There was an old thing in school. It's called test corrections. All right, You got it wrong. You got sometimes the teacher gave you test corrections. I feel
I had it the other way around. Listen, I remember one year I actually lied about a score I got on a test, and I wound up cheating on the test, and I wound up I hate to say it, I got beaten to a pulp afterwards because the teacher called my house, and I lied about the score, and safe to say I was the other way around for test corrections. That's why
I also don't think. I also looking at the counter. I don't think Brad has every game in there.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, keep in mind, I'm not doing
week one. We didn't pick every game. I'm pretty sure week one we did not pick every game.
Oh yeah, there's some games we didn't pick, and there's Thursday night games we have not picked. So
I know I'm on the shy this week because I picked the Miami Dolphins. So I'm the idiot.
Yeah, me too. I got the loss for the Dolphins.
I'm picking Cincinnati on Thursday.
I mean, it's not like Brad is that far off. I'm 22-25-1 based on what I have in my notebook. So. It might have been a couple of Thursday night games that he missed. It's probably pretty close to accurate, though.
All right. I mean, look, what are we now? What are you behind him in the standings?
That's what I'm calling it, crap. Not good.
Right.
Well, you know what?
None of us are good.
I tell you what, listen, looking at our records, I mean, Chris's winning percentage is about 550, and the rest of us pretty much are around 500. Well, 550 is good. Listen, I mean, you'd almost be a playoff team, but the rest of us are.
Hey, you could be me. I'm 0-9 with my 3 locks of the week. Okay, it's gonna have to turn around at some point. You might as well just do the opposite of what I do.
Well, maybe we focus then on.
That's when yours will hit.
Well, listen, I mean, look at it this way. It's like playing the numbers, right? For those who are lotto players here, you go and play the lotto once in a while. You get lucky. I mean, I heard a little birdie told me that Rob Maraska's played the lotto and won a couple of times and hit big. So, I mean, you never know out there, right? But that's what a little birdie told me. I won't say what the little birdie is. But you know what? Let's go to some picks. I do want to get to every game. And certainly Thursday, we had the Brute Force. You picked the Bengals. I picked the Dolphins, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Brad. You went with the Bengals and Justin went with the Dolphins. I went with the Dolphins. We'll give Chris the Bengals, and I think Anthony Finkel picked the Bengals as well, I want to say. So we'll go with that. So we have all that in the works. So let's go here from some of the games, and I'll start here from what's on top of my chart, aside from the Giants and Jets, and I'll go with the London game first because obviously we have a lot of listeners in the UK, and I do a lot of coverage in professional wrestling, and always appreciative of all of our supporters out there in England. About almost 500 followers now on Facebook, and many of them from England. I get many messages from our friends across the pond, and let's go with the Vikings Saints. Very, very interesting matchup. Obviously, Vikings pull out a win against the Lions. I was kind of heartbroken about that. I won't lie. I watched almost the whole game. And I'm going with the Brute Force Brad Weiss here. Vikings 2.5-point favorites over the Saints. A Saints team I just really can't figure out. 43.5 is the over-under. I do hope it's a good game for our friends in the UK. It is one of the better matchups I've seen so far when it comes to a Sunday game. But they've had the Jaguars always play there. I mean, listen.
Yeah, they're going to be there again this year, I believe, right?
We're going to get to those Jaguars.
The Jaguars. The Jaguars are no joke.
Well, this year, yes. This year, yes. But you know what? Jets-Falcons last year was a brutal game to watch. I mean, a lot of these games in London aren't the greatest. So my point was at least Vikings-Saints is somewhat of a respectable matchup. So the Brute Force, Vikings-Saints, who do you like?
So the one thing that's playing a factor in this game is obviously that Jameis Winston is doubtful to play. And that, it looks like it's going to be Andy Dalton on the center for the Saints.
That's a blast from the past.
So, Andy Dalton, listen, I'm not saying Andy Dalton is a scrub. I think he still can play a little bit. But to start by agreeing with John Gonzalez, my God, all right? Right? I'm agreeing with John. I'm taking the Vikings. I was disappointed last week. Like you said, Tom, I had the Lions as well.
You did.
They were looking good for a while, but, I'm just glad Uncle Rob did not get the footage of me picking against them last week.
Has he messaged you since last week? Because your uncle's a big man, too. I know your Uncle Rob.
I'm very lucky, but I'm not going to make him upset. I'm not going to make him upset again. I'm going to pick the Vikings. I think that, listen, you give credit to the Saints defense, but I just don't think the Saints offense will manufacture enough. And, listen, I don't think 9:30 in the morning is considered prime time, although it is in London. So that does
well, that's where you need to make sure that you get your numbers right. That's 2:30 in the UK. It's a 5-hour.
It's not prime time yet, so we're good.
All right, so it's not prime time.
Cousins is good.
We're picking the Vikings then.
The lights aren't on, so it's okay.
All right. But it's not 9:30 in New York. That's all my points. 2:30 there start time. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah. All right. Fair enough. All right. So for you, Justin, Vikings and Saints. Vikings 2.5-point favorites. 43.5 is the over under. And let's say you.
Yeah, I mean, just as important as the Saints missing Jameis Winston in this game is the fact that Michael Thomas has already been ruled out. The Saints are very banged up right now, and I just don't know where the points are coming from. Their defense doesn't impress me as it has in years past. The last couple of years, they've had a better defense. I think the Vikings win this game, and I think they win it pretty decently, like by a touchdown to 10 points. Because they're going to be able to generate offense, and I don't know where the Saints are going to generate that offense from. I think after the last couple of weeks, expect Justin Jefferson to break out a little bit. It's been a little bit of a slog the last couple of weeks for Jefferson, but what you saw last week is why the Vikings can be good. Because yes, the Lions are a much improved team, but the Lions don't have a good defense. Let's put the facts.
Especially that last drive. Oh my God!
Exactly, and Kirk Cousins made the plays when he needed to. So I definitely like the Vikings in this one.
All right, fair enough. And for you, Chris, Vikings and Saints. Vikings 2.5-point favorites. 43.5 is the over under.
Yeah, this sounds like an easy one. You got to go Minnesota here. Just a better team, I think, right now. Like we said, it's not prime time, so Kirk Cousins should have no problem winning this game. Yeah, no, but the Saints are banged up. No Winston. You got Andy Dalton starting there now. So, yeah, this seems too easy. So, go Minnesota.
I want to be different, but I really can't argue with anything that anybody has said here because the Vikings, I mean, listen, my good friend, who I mentioned, Daniel Slavin down there in the state of Florida, has Kirk Cousins on his fantasy team, and he convinced me I think at the start of the season that he thought, well, he thinks Kirk Cousins, he thinks statistically, not the win-loss record for his career, he thinks statistically he's due for a big year. I mean, listen, he's an accountant. He spends all day at numbers. He convinced me. I was like, okay, you're one of my best friends. I've known you a long time. I'll go with it. But, you listen to us all the time. You comment on all my shows. Fine. But I'm going to go with the Vikings just because I really don't buy into this Saints team right now. I think the Vikings are kind of poised right now. Maybe it is their time to go on a nice run. They got a little bit of momentum right now. They got a win against Green Bay under their belts. They got a Detroit win where Detroit's up by 10 points. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the first win in a long time that the Vikings won coming back down from 10 points in the fourth quarter. So they've got a little bit of momentum.
I remember they did that without Dalvin Cook, too, in the second half.
Yep.
But the good news is, despite the shoulder injury, Dalvin Cook was not on the injury report today, and he will be a full go on Sunday. He's just basically going to play with the harness on, which he's done the last couple of years with that dislocated shoulder, and it's something he's able to manage.
And Joey Bostrom here agrees. So it's pretty much a clean sweep for us. We don't get these too often. So remember this moment here when the Saints win. But Joey says here, Vikings win 27-14. Yeah, you know what, Joey Bostrom? I could kind of see that kind of outcome here. 43.5, 41. Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable number. But let's move along here because I want to get to every game. And that's the Colts and Titans. And that's the Colts 3.5-point favorites over the Titans. And certainly the Colts get a nice bounce-back win here, I guess you could say, against the Chiefs. And certainly this could be another win maybe for the Colts, get them back on track and maybe put people a little bit more hopeful that maybe the Colts are the team that can be there in that AFC South discussion because somebody has to win it. So for you, the brute force Bradley Weiss, Colts 3.5-point favorites over the Titans. 43.5 is the over-under. What do you think?
Yeah, so both of these teams won last week. The Colts surprised Kansas City, and the Titans beat the Raiders. But, I do think that one team is a little bit better than the other overall, and I think that's the Colts. I think the Colts, they have a more complete team where the Titans are a little bit more reliable on one guy, and that's obviously Derrick Henry. And the Colts, at least I thought, oh, come on, John, already. At least with the Colts, I did think, that they were going to have a good defense coming into the year. They showed a little bit more against Kansas City last week, even though I thought that was more Kansas City not playing well rather than the defense showing up. Right. So, but I will say this is going to be one of those ugly matchups because divisional matchup, the teams, one team has to win this matchup, and it's going to, give somebody an advantage in this division. So I'm going to go with the Colts at home. I think Matt Ryan is slowly but steadily maybe showing some signs, and I'm not really excited about Ryan Tannehill. This game's all going to be on Derrick Henry, and I just don't think he could carry the load enough. And please, for my fantasy team's sake, Jonathan Taylor, wake up, please. I need a big week.
I know. Good. That's a good point. That's a great point on Jonathan Taylor. That's a great point there. But, for you, Justin, again, intriguing matchup here. You might say Colts 3.5-point favorites over the Titans. 43 is the over-under. And what do you think?
Yeah, I got to agree with Brad here. I think the Colts are the better team in this game, and I think what you're seeing over the last week or two is that Matt Ryan is slowly getting fully integrated into this offense. You got to remember, a lot of these guys don't play a lot in the preseason, so it takes a couple of weeks before these guys get into form. And Tennessee is just not good enough to overcome the deficiencies that they have anymore. And, Ryan Tannehill being their biggest deficiency right now, at some point it's going to have to be Malik Willis time. And if they want to spark and save the season, I don't know how soon they do it, but, I was pretty impressed by the way that they played overall. The Colts played overall against the Chiefs last week. And I think that really as a sign of things getting going. And, I think Frank Reich did a tremendous job last week, and I think it's going to continue, and I like the Colts here.
All right, and for you, Chris, Colts, small favorites, you might say, here over the Titans, and Colts maybe have a little bit momentum, maybe they use it, but what do you think here in this matchup?
Yeah, I like the Colts too. I still don't like the Titans, even though they won last week. I know they beat the Raiders, but
somebody has to win that one.
Yeah. Raiders still haven't won a game, which is shocking. But I'm going to take the Colts. They gotta be righting the ship soon. So I think this was their first win and going in that direction. So.
All right, here, and let me get to some of these other matchups here. Joey Bostrom says Colts did a great job last week. Tennessee almost blew it last week. Colts win. That's fair. Anthony Finkel, who, by the way, here shows me a picture. I don't even know if I should post it or show it. I won't post it, but I'll show it. His girlfriend cooked broccoli cheddar soup. So that looks like a pretty good creation, maybe a better creation than some teams' offenses this week. So I'll give Anthony Finkel's girlfriend a very, very good shout out for that. But, I'm going to go with the Titans for whatever reason here. Just something tells me here, you know what, Ryan Tannehill, maybe the Titans turn the corner. I'm not quite sold still on this Colts team. I'm going to say it's a close game. I'm going to say 24-20 Titans here. Something tells me it will be close, and I think the brute force hit the nail on the head here. Jonathan Taylor, to me, is the X factor in this game. I think it goes the other way around, and something tells me here that Derrick Henry does enough, and the Titans find a way to win, and they kind of keep themselves in this kind of wacky AFC South where somebody's going to have to win this race here. So that's my thoughts here on that matchup. And let's go down to another matchup, which is a really, really intriguing matchup. And that would be a game that certainly could easily be a Sunday night or a Monday night game. That is the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, two potential MVP candidates and certainly MVPs themselves. And Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Bills 3-point favorites here. Ravens are at home, though. 51 is the over-under in the brute force. This is a really, really intriguing matchup. And what do you think here?
Yeah, it's an intriguing matchup that I think Buffalo is ready for. And especially after last week, that was obviously a tough loss for the Bills. And I do think that there's clearly a mismatch on one side of the ball, and that's defense. I think, the Buffalo defense obviously is a very good defense. I'm not saying they're going to shut down the Ravens, but they're going to slow down the Ravens a little bit. And I'm saying the Ravens, not Lamar Jackson. I'm saying the Ravens as a unit. But what I will say is I think Buffalo is going to go crazy against this Baltimore defense, especially Their secondary that's been absolutely horrendous. You saw what they looked like against Tua a couple weeks ago in the fourth quarter. They couldn't stop anyone. And I think ultimately they didn't do a great job even against the Patriots team that wasn't that good offensively, scoring 26 points against them last week. So I think this Baltimore defense, especially their secondary, is concerning. And I think this could be, hopefully, again, for my fantasy team's purposes, another big week for Stephon Diggs. So give me the Bills, and I think the Bills are going to score a lot of points. I say they're going to get close to 40, but I think the Ravens will stay in the game a little bit, but the Bills will pull away. Give me like a 42-28 final.
All right, I mean that's certainly fair, and certainly John Gonzalez likes the Bills. Anthony Finkel says Bills Ravens sounds like the game of the week with the popcorn, and he likes the Buffalo Bills. And for you, Justin Gianelli, who do you like? And I think this could be the potential game of the week between the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens.
Certainly going to be one of them, that's for sure. It's pretty incredible the start that Lamar Jackson's had to his season. He looks like he's on another planet right now. And right now, I might as well start issuing my apologies for saying he's not a great quarterback, because you know what? He's playing the position tremendously. He is still the same Lamar Jackson who's running all over defenses, but he's really thrown the ball well this year and has really looked like a transformed quarterback who can now really do it all. With that being said, I think Buffalo's a little bit too tall of a task for the Ravens right now. I think the Bills are just better. I think especially coming off of that loss to Miami last week, I think the Bills are definitely going to bounce back, and I think that they're going to win a shootout. Brad at 42-28, I see like 42-38. I do think that the Ravens really could keep up, and it really could be whoever has the ball last. And I think, it's going to be Buffalo in this situation.
Joey Bostrom seems to agree. He got 34 Buffalo, 27 Baltimore. Chris, this could be the potential game of the week. Buffalo Bills field goal favorites. 51's the over-under. Baltimore Ravens are the home team. What do you think?
I'm going to go Buffalo too. Baltimore's got, I think, the worst passing defense in the league. They're averaging
surprising for John Harbaugh teams, by the way. Very surprising for John Harbaugh teams.
They're averaging 353 yards per game in the air, giving up Baltimore. They're middle of the pack against the run. The only thing that bothers me about Buffalo, I know they still got the injuries in their secondary, but on the offensive side, they got to be able to run the ball. I don't understand why they don't try to get better in that category, with a better line or a better running back. It just makes no sense. Playing in Buffalo, especially late in the year, especially in the playoffs, when you got a home game in late January, you want to be able to run the ball. And they can with Josh Allen, but listen, the guy's not Superman. How many quarterbacks do we see a long time running as much as he does? I know he's a big dude. I know he's going to be able to take a pounding, but eventually that's going to catch up. So, but for this game, and I think for this year, Buffalo is going to be fine. And I think Buffalo's going to win this game. They're probably going to win by at least 7. So, but high scoring for sure. But I think Buffalo wins.
I'm going to be in agreement because I think Buffalo is going to bounce back from last week against Miami. And certainly there was some issues there with some management, but I like Buffalo 35, Baltimore 24, something like that. I think that's kind of has that game of scream. I think we're all of us that are here on the stream pretty much kind of agree in that particular mindset. And let's go to another game, another intriguing matchup here, I guess you might say, in some disappointing teams, at least one of them, and certainly the Chargers here. And the Chargers are 5-point favorites against the Texans. 44 is the over-under. And the brute force Brad Weiss, I mean, I really don't know what to make of this game here. I mean, everyone had the Chargers as their dark horse pick in the AFC. And, I mean, they so far haven't looked like that. I mean, what do you think here? And the Texans don't look impressive at all. I mean, they could be one of the worst teams, certainly at least in the AFC. And what do you think comes away with a win?
Yeah, well, when it comes to, I'll talk about the Texans first. They actually didn't look that bad the first couple of weeks. And then last week, they really laid an egg against the Bears. I thought they were going to give the Bears a better test, and they certainly did not do so. So I was a little bit upset with that. The Chargers, obviously, I don't think it's more or less their performance. I think their injuries are getting to a point that's very concerning. They have injuries at a lot of key positions, and obviously one of them, which is not being talked about enough, but the one to Justin Herbert with his ribs. He's out there playing, but he doesn't look like the 100% Justin Herbert. Yeah, sure, he's still making throws, but he's not playing at his best. Keenan Allen is out yet again this week for the Chargers. Defensively, they have multiple guys out that are key on the defensive side. So I could go down the list of injuries, and I'll be here all night. The Chargers have those problems. But with all that being said, there's clearly one team that's better than the other. Even with the injuries, I think it's the Chargers. I actually think this game is going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout or a 2-touchdown game by any means for the Chargers. But I do see the Chargers pulling this one out. Herbert will, throw as much as he can with those damn ribs. I don't even know what, and again, I have him in fantasy, so another guy I need to root for. Give me the Chargers, but it won't be that exciting of a game. I'll actually go out and say maybe 23-16 or something like that. Nothing too exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable. John Gonzalez likes the Chargers. Anthony Finkel likes the Bolts. And for you, Justin Gianelli, obviously the Chargers are 5-point favorites here over the Texans. 44 is the over-under, but I don't know what to make of the Chargers. Maybe it's more about the Chargers and the Texans, but what do you think here in this matchup?
Listen, the Chargers could win this game with Chase Daniel as quarterback. Let's just put the facts where they are. I mean, the Chargers are a better team than the Texans, despite all the injuries. Keenan Allen's banged up. He's not going to play in this game. Obviously, we know that Herbert's not playing 100%, but I mean, the Texans are just awful. Their defense is not great. Davis Mills is an okay quarterback, and I think he's played reasonably well over the first couple of weeks of the season, but I just don't know that they have enough firepower on offense to score enough points to beat the Chargers. Brad mentioned like a 23-16 score. I think that's probably the range you're looking at. I don't know what the Chargers are going to exactly light it on fire, but I think they're going to be able to do enough. And look for them to complement Herbert with a lot more run game this week. I think you could see a little bit more on the ground this week for the Chargers.
Fair enough here. And for you, Chris, Chargers, Texans, and who do you think comes away with a victory?
Yeah, I'm going to go Chargers too. I mean, they got to bounce back, especially after last week losing to the Jaguars at home. I know they're banged up, but they got to beat Houston, and they got to keep up in that AFC West because someone's going to take off in that AFC West. No one really hasn't yet. Kansas City's 2-1. So I think they got to win just to keep up. So I think the Chargers win.
Texans offense really hasn't been any good so far. They've scored, I think, about 16 points a game, and everybody, I think, had said 16 points here so far you see out of them. And again, I really want to be different. I really want to pick the Texans, but there really isn't anything that would point for me to pick to the Texans. So I'm going to say Chargers 24, Texans 14, something like that. The Chargers, I think Justin had pointed out, they have to kind of win here. They have to stay on pace here because you got the Chiefs, you got the Broncos, and for them to go 1-3, even for a playoff spot, I think is going to be very tenuous at best for them to kind of come back here in the race. So I do kind of think that the Chargers find a way and get a victory, and that'll kind of keep them within pace in that, again, AFC wildcard and AFC West race here. And another matchup, and of course, I want to go right to the Brute Force because we always go to him anyway. And this is the matchup that I think I'm always looking forward to speaking about. That is, of course, our beloved Detroit Lions. And the Lions broke our hearts here. They broke our hearts like some of our New York sports teams last week on Sportswire Radio. And the Lions are 4-point favorites here over the Seahawks, the much maligned Seattle Seahawks. So I think I picked to win last week, which I really don't know why I did that. I almost regret that. But 48's the over-under here, which I kind of think is kind of high in this matchup, even though the Lions do score, but the Seahawks, I don't expect them to score much. But Lions are home, and the Brute Force Brad Weiss, I'm really curious to see who you pick here in this matchup.
Well, the last time the Lions were favored in a game, they came through and they won. and they hadn't been favored in a game in like years. It was before against the Commanders. But listen, this is a matchup that I already said, and the person I really want to hear from this one is Justin Gianelli, because I remember before the season. Before the season, Justin said, when I was talking about, went on my rants about Detroit winning 6 or more games, I said they're definitely beating the Seahawks, and Justin wasn't so sure about that. We'll see what he has to say today. But I will say, with all that being said, I'm going to pick the Lions. I think they're going to win, but I am a tad bit concerned just because they have some big injuries in this game. Swift is not playing. Amon-Ra St. Brown is not playing. So there are some injuries on the offensive side that will hurt them, but Geno Smith is the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. That's all I have to say about them. They're just simply not good enough, and I do think they'll keep it closer than we all think. But that 4-point spread, I think I'm comfortable with it. Lions win, and John Gonzalez, hopefully me and you can celebrate next week together.
Hey, well, I'll tell you what, that makes also for Anthony J. Finkel here. And yeah, Justin Gino, let's go right to it. I mean, Lions, Seahawks, and I'm kind of curious who you're going to pick because I'm picking after Chris. So I'm kind of figuring out to see how you guys pick.
Yeah, look, I think this is a tough spot for Seattle to be in. After that, week 1 win where you kind of didn't really do much in the second half, but you're able to hold off Denver. You haven't really played well. I really thought Seattle would be able to beat Atlanta at home last week. That clearly didn't take shape, and Seattle is obviously going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. And it's rare we say this, but there's a team that Detroit's a step above, and right now they're a step above Seattle. They're just a little bit better right now. I am concerned, like Brad said, I am concerned about the injuries to St. Brown and to Swift, because that does severely compromise the offense. You're looking at Jamal Williams and Reynolds at Reynolds at receiver. You got Jamal Williams at running back. I think you have Craig Reynolds at running back as well. It's gonna be an interesting game. I don't feel comfortable completely saying the Lions, but if I had to pick, I do think the Lions. I don't know. That 4 spread is not a number I touch. I don't know that I really like it.
You like the over-under?
Yeah, it's set at 48. I think that's too high. I mean,
so do I.
You could look at a 20-17, 20-16. This could go either way in terms of the spread. I think it's going to be right on that line of 4.
All right, fair enough. For you, Chris, Lions, Seahawks, and Lions win. They go to 2-2. Seahawks, even with Geno Smith, for what it's worth, they go to 2-2. So somebody wins and somebody feels good about their season. And what do you think?
Yeah, I got to go Detroit too. I can't see Seattle winning on the road against Detroit. Like you said, I think Seattle's probably the worst team in the league this year. That first week was probably a semi-miracle for them to beat Denver.
That's because of some really, really horrible coaching.
Seattle's not going to get many more wins this year. So, and this week they're not getting one. I think Detroit wins their second one. They get up to 2-2.
Detroit 24, Seattle 14. I believe in the Lions team still. I think they can compete. Jared Goff is, I think, 4-1 now his last 9 games. He's been much better. And I do think that he's a competent quarterback. And I think the Lions at home here, I think clearly, again, speaking of coaching, that game should have went to, I don't know what coach was thinking there when he went for that long field goal to Brute Force. Correct me if I'm wrong, in the fourth quarter late there. I mean, that was kind of that was a questionable decision to say the least. I think Lions bounce back. I think they get a win. I think they're an improved football team, and I think they're on the cusp. And I kind of think that the Seahawks, I'm with Chris. I do not think anything at all of the Seahawks, and I think it's going to be them.
Again, the only problem Detroit's going to run into is teams that have competent to really good offenses, and for this week, Seattle's not that.
No question about it. I mean, to me, the bottom feeder teams are going to be the Commanders, probably the Texans, the Falcons, and I think that Seattle's in that discussion there. So, that's another game off the books. And this is a really, really intriguing game. This might be kind of one of these dark horse games of the week, if you want to call it that. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. That is the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. And certainly Chris's Philadelphia Eagles against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who Justin Gianelli, if I'm not mistaken, earlier in the year said they would be an improved football team. And they got a couple of wins under their belt. They got a Super Bowl winning coach. Quarterback looks good. And the Brute Force Brad Weiss. This is a really, really intriguing matchup. A dark horse game. I know it's in Philly, but Jaguars looked good last week. Eagles obviously undefeated. I mean, what do you think here?
Yeah, so this one's going to be interesting. I actually think first I'll say I'm picking the Eagles to win, but I think the Jaguars will cover the spread. I think I'm confident in the Jaguars covering the spread. I don't think last week's win was any fluke by the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars are a legitimate competitive football team this year. As you said, you talked about those bottom tier teams like we mentioned. They're not in that conversation anymore.
No, I agree with you on that.
I think both those teams have taken a step out of that really low category you just said with those teams. So I think Jacksonville stays in this game. Keep in mind, this is the first game back for Doug Peterson since he got fired as Eagles coach. I think he plays with some emotion. I think his players play with some emotion. I think Trevor Lawrence has played good football as well. James Robinson's run the ball really well. Their defense has been pretty stout in Jacksonville. So I like a lot of what Jacksonville's doing. I just think the Eagles make a little too many plays on them. They are a good team. I respect the Eagles. It's going to be a close game. I say, maybe Eagles 32 and the Jaguars 27.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see a lot of those points there. And Justin, I'll tell you what, you definitely, we're on to something when it came to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They get a real coach for the first time in a long time for the franchise. And they've got a couple wins under their belt. And the Eagles, again, might be one of those dark horse teams as well that you might want to look at for the Super Bowl. But it's a really dark horse game, as I've put it. And Eagles are 6.5-point favorites, and 45.5 is the over/under. And what do you think here, Justin?
You know what? To me, this is the best game of the day window, and that's not including Chiefs Buccaneers. That's going to be later on. But this to me is going to be the game of the afternoon, and it's gonna come down. This is gonna be close because we know Doug Onions Peterson is gonna have these boys fired up, and Trevor Lawrence coming off of last week's performance. They are really on a high right now, and I told you Jacksonville's gonna be decent this year, much improved. I didn't expect they'd be this good early on. They've played some very, very good football early on, and both sides of the ball. You have a two-headed monster at running back. You have James Robinson, Travis Etienne. Christian Kirk has played a tremendous wide receiver. We all criticize that contract, and so far, so good. He's living up to that. Zay Jones has been a nice addition to them as well, complimenting Marvin Jones as well. They're a well-rounded football team. I would certainly take the Jaguars on the spread here. I don't know that they have enough to beat the Eagles in this situation. The Eagles are the last remaining unbeaten team after the Dolphins went down on Thursday night. I think that they're going to squeak out a victory. I would say in the 34-31 range. The Jaguars are certainly going to be able to keep up and score some points. And I wouldn't be shocked, even though I'm taking the Eagles here, that if Trevor Lawrence has the ball within the last couple of minutes, down one position, that he can lead this team to victory, because I do trust him and I do believe he is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, I'll tell you what, you definitely seem very high on the over there based on that score. And for you, Chris, of course, you're Philadelphia Eagles. You got to be a very, very happy man right now. And the Eagles definitely be very much on schedule, way ahead of schedule, as a matter of fact. And they are solid favorites here against the Jaguars. Jaguars look to be improved, an early season test for both teams. And certainly Coach Peterson comes home, I believe, as Justin pointed out. And what do you think here?
I think it's going to be a good game, but I think Philly, this is a good challenge because the Jaguars are coming in as like the number 1 rush defense in the league. And Philly is running the ball just as good as anybody. Obviously, that's the main part of their offense. So this is going to be a good challenge for both teams. see which one steps up. I would say Philly's going to win. I'll give them the win. Cover? Yeah, I don't know. That might be tough. I don't know how good. I haven't watched the Jaguars like a full game of theirs yet, so I don't want to say anything. So I'll say the Eagles are going to win. The one thing that bothers me about Philly, and this is why I don't think they're going to cover, is that their games they've dominated the first half offensively, and then the second half they just about do nothing in the second half. It's almost like they're just trying to milk the clock, run it out, instead of just continually to attack. So that's the only thing that keeps me thinking it'll the Jaguars will be able to stay within that point, within the points. So
yeah,
but I'll still get Philly to win though.
For whatever reason, you see this all the time in sports. When somebody comes back to a place and they've had success, and there is something about being motivated, coming back to your old stomping grounds. And Doug Peterson and this Jaguars team might be improved enough, and it's an early season test, and I think that they'll certainly put a lot more people on notice if they get a win like this on the road, back-to-back wins on the road like this. And call me crazy, just maybe Trevor Lawrence is ready to make that step. But this is going to be more about Doug Peterson coming home, and certainly those players are going to have a lot to play for here. And call me crazy, but I think that the Jaguars are going to win this game in a shootout, 31-28. Just call me crazy. I do believe in sports. You get motivated. The brute force, you've seen it before. You've been an athlete. You've been a coach. And Doug Peterson won a lot of games there in Philadelphia. He had a lot of success. He took that franchise to a Super Bowl. And you know what? Justin, you might be onto something about this Jaguars team. I'm buying into them right now. I'm buying into them more than I would with crypto or anything else right now. And I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars here by a field goal. So you know what, Justin, you sold me, but I do believe in some of those things that I pointed out. Let's go to another matchup, which I know is not going to be one of the premier games of the week, but certainly it is a matchup that I would think on paper is going to be a clear-cut advantage for one team, and the brute force, that is one of your favorite teams over the past 3 years on Sportswire Radio, and I am talking about them Dallas Cowboys, who did get a win on Monday Night Football, and I guess an okay game to watch. I was into it, so I'll say that much here, and they've got the quarterback. He seems to be playing well in these Washington Commanders, and I think this is a little bit low of a spread here. Dallas 3-point favorites, only 41.5 is the over-under. And the brute force, Brad Weiss, I know where you're going on this matchup, but everybody else here listening and watching to Sportswire Radio, I'm sure, would like to know.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if one of Justin Gianelli's locks this week is plus is minus. I would be, because I think that's a good one. Pretty good one, because that's just disrespectful to Cooper Rush, who's actually played some really good football. I'm not saying
he's a good quarterback. Watching him live Monday, he's a good quarterback. You know what? I take back something. I take back forgetting that he was Carson Palmer. I take it back.
I mean, he's not playing elite football, but the one thing I like about him is that he doesn't make mistakes. He just simply makes the simple reads, makes the simple plays, made a great throw, and obviously a great catch by CeeDee Lamb last week against the Giants. So the Cowboys are obviously going to win this game. And like I said, this if I was me, this would be one of my locks of the week, the Cowboys -3, because they will win by more than 3. And between me and Jake Supran and the rest of the Washington, all right, Commander Carson and all this Commander nonsense. I listen, I'm the guy who went all year last year and said, get a name. Honestly, Tom Bryce, how bad this team is and how embarrassing all those fans should be right now, I think they should go back to the football team. They might as well. I mean, this is embarrassing.
They won a division as the Washington football team for what it was worth that season, 7-9, I know. But you know what? They're a bad football team. They're a bad football team.
Yes, they're bad. And this game, again, it's not going to be a super blowout, but the 3 points, it's going to be more than that. Give me a touchdown win for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think Anthony Finkel's emoji of the Cowboys pretty much nailed it. And John Gonzalez is in bold. Dallas nailed it. And Justin Gianelli Cowboys, Commanders. I mean, this is definitely one of those that you kind of scratch your head on the over/under and the spread. And what do you think?
You know, one of the things I said last week when we talked about the Giants-Cowboys games, I called Cooper Rush a game stabilizer. He's a guy who's not going to go out there and make the stupid play. He's going to go out there and confidently sit there in the pocket and make the right decisions. You saw the chemistry he had with Noah Brown, and you saw some of the connection he had with CD Lamb in the second half of that game against the Giants. And Cooper Rush is a guy who can handle the moment, who can handle playing in the NFL. He's 3-0 as a starter. He won on the road last year in Minnesota on national television. He defeated the Bengals on a last second field goal, taking them down to field goal range. And then on Monday Night Football, goes to be the Giants team that, the Giants have a pretty solid defense to start this season. Their defense has played pretty well, and he was able to make some nice plays and really show he's a capable NFL quarterback. And I just trust Cooper Rush more than I trust Carson Wentz. And it doesn't really make any sense because one was the number 2 overall pick. One is an undrafted free agent who was released by the Giants 2 years ago before going to the Cowboys on the practice squad and bouncing it around as the backup quarterback. So, but Dallas as a whole, and the two-headed monster last week of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard really took the pressure off Cooper Rush and allowed him to play the game and allowed him to just be comfortable. Also, too, how about the addition of Jason Peters to that offensive line? I mean, he comes out there and he starts mauling people the minute he gets on the field. Chris knows from all the years Jason Peters played for the Eagles how good he is.
Oh, yeah.
Still at 40 years old, he came out mauling people last week, and that Cowboy offensive line seems to have really stabilized itself, and I think that's a good place for Cooper Rush to be in. So I really like the Cowboys in this game. I like them comfortably.
I was expecting that. I didn't expect anything less from you, Justin. And for you, Chris, Cowboys, Commanders. I mean, I'm just scratching my head on kind of how low the spread here is. But Dallas is 3-point favorites. 41.5 is the over/under. And what do you think?
Yeah, I'm on Dallas too. It makes no sense. It's only 3. I don't know why they think Washington that much. I mean, when you think about it, when you add the 3 points for being home, it's basically a pick'em game. So yeah. I think it's Dallas by a lot here. I think they're going to win by at least 2 scores too. Cooper Rush played really well last week. Washington's not great defensively either, so I could see Dallas putting up some points. So I think Dallas
their trademark over the last couple of years too about their defense, and hasn't been what it advertised.
Yeah, Dallas. I think Dallas is going to have an easy win this week. At least it looks that way, right?
Oh, you know what? And I'm about to also be in full agreement. And listen, I'm not the biggest Cowboys fan. I've never been the biggest Cowboys fan. But to me, Dallas looks like they've got a quarterback right now. They've kind of weathered the storm. And I really don't believe much in this Commanders team. And I'm going to go Dallas 28, Washington 10. I know the Supran brothers are friends of ours, the Brew Force. But I don't see it with this Washington team. To me, this is just a pretty one-sided matchup here, especially Dallas back at home. And I don't see it here. But let's go to another game, the Brew Force. I am sure you are dying to pick. I am sure that this was the game when you woke up Tuesday morning in beautiful Plainview. You said, you know what? Friday night on Sportzwire Radio, this was the game that I wanted to pick. And of course, we're talking about the Cleveland Browns and one of your much beloved teams, those Atlanta Falcons, which you say is the dumbest team in football. Maybe you really mean the smartest team in football. I don't know. But this is one of the games where it's literally, the Browns are 1-point favorites. Falcons are at home. 47 is the over-under. I know that you are dying to tell us on Sportswire Radio Live and anywhere else we play this on. What do you think? And tell us what you think then.
Yeah, so listen, I'm not as low as I normally am on the dumbest team. They actually have not made me too upset. Obviously, the first week They blew a big lead. They lost, and I picked them against the Saints. That was not good. But last week they came through. I picked them, and they beat Seattle. They did their jobs. But ultimately, in this matchup, I actually don't think it's as hard as people think. I know Atlanta's playing, okay football, but I actually
Well, that's what they did last year. Listen, they hung into the playoff race as long as they did. Don't forget.
Yeah, and they might hang around for a little bit again, but I'm not picking them in this game. I'm picking the Cleveland Browns because I think the Cleveland Browns actually deserve some more credit than they're getting. I know that they had that bad loss to the Jets, and obviously that's a blemish on their record, but if they win that game, they're actually 3-0. And they
great point.
They did their job there. So I do think there's good things. Obviously, the concern is for Myles Garrett after this car accident. He seems to be okay. But ultimately, even without him, I would pick the Cleveland Browns just because there's no disrespecting Jacoby Brissett. He's done the job. He's been efficient. He's ran this offense well. And the Cleveland running game, I think that's where the key is going to be in this game. They're going to run all over the dumbest team. The dumbest team does not do well against good running backs. And I think between the two-headed monster of Chubb and Kareem Hunt, I think they will dominate this game. The Browns' defense has been solid for the most part. Like I said, their one blemish was against the Jets. But I think the Atlanta Falcons are not I think they're worse than actually some of the teams that they've seen so far this season. I think they take care of the job. Will be close, but I'm confident. Again, this is another spread I'm confident in. Give me the Browns, and they probably win by a 4-7 margin.
Okay, that's reasonable. And Anthony Finkel, I think, likes the Browns off that emoji. I believe that's the Browns, but I'm trying to be as diplomatic as I can here because obviously we are a family station here on Sportswire Radio, and I think Anthony Finkel is pulling a rib here. Yeah, we're trying. We're trying here. We want to make sure we be inclusive to all. But Justin, again, 1-point favorites of the Browns. 47 is the over/under. Falcons are at home. Brad Weiss makes some pretty good points there about the Browns, and he even made a point or two fair about the Falcons. But what do you think?
Little does Brad know that his dumbest team in football is not even the dumbest team on the field in this game. And because of Mr. Grabby Boy that's sitting out suspended. So, if there's any worse of an organization, it's the Cleveland Browns over the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, it might be referencing off the field as opposed to on the field. But you know what? All right, in all seriousness, looking at this game, I think the Browns are actually going to miss Myles Garrett more than we really think. And I think that defense is going to take a hit. And, Marcus Mariota's played okay at quarterback his first couple of weeks. He's obviously an extremely athletic quarterback. He's a guy who could really move around in the pocket, scramble when need to. And they've got some okay weapons on offense. And you know what? Their defense hasn't been all that terrible. And I actually like the Falcons in this game. And I think the Falcons are going to come away with one of those last-second field goals by Younghoe Koo. And and steal a victory at home. I think Cleveland. I just don't trust Jacoby Brissett enough. I know you could look at the running game with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and those two are serious factors. But I think the defensive line of the Falcons should slow it down to the point where they're going to start forcing Brissett to make some plays in the pocket, and I'm still not very trustworthy of that. So it's going to be close. I don't think it's super high scoring. Give me like a 20-19 kind of game for the Falcons.
I kind of like it, Justin. I kind of like the pick. I kind of like some of the things you laid out, as crazy as all that sounds here. But Chris, Browns Falcons, I don't know what to make of it, but what do you think?
Yeah, I guess the number looks way too low. I think Cleveland should be favored by more, but
I guess 4, maybe 4.5, like 4,
something
4.5,
like that. I guess, but I'm going to go against Justin here. I think Cleveland's going to win. I think they're going to be able to control the ball on the ground, and Brissett's going to be able to do just enough to win. And I think it'll be an easy win for them, like a 20-10 game or something like that, 20-13 maybe.
John Gonzalez here likes the Browns. And what happened to Joey Bostrom, who was supposed to be picking games with us? He kind of just disappeared here. But you know what? Maybe he disappeared because he doesn't want to go on the record. Now, the Falcons, to me, the only reason I'm going with the Browns here is because I said the Falcons are one of the more bottom teams in the league. I don't think they're really that good, and the brute force Brad Weiss kind of sold me on the fact, if you think about it, the Cleveland Browns could be 3-0 right now, which is kind of crazy, right? Because they're without the quarterback that they went and got a lot of money on, hopefully, finally, to kind of correct that quarterback problem for them long term, and obviously all the turmoil that franchise is winning. But you know what? I kind of think Cleveland wins here in a like 17-10, 20-13 type of game, maybe 21-13 game. I don't buy much in Atlanta at all. I don't see them topping out at 5 wins, the Brute Force, something like that. Atlanta, I don't see it here. And maybe Cleveland's a good football team. You know what? They win this game. They're 3-1. You got to give them a lot of credit. So you know what? I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns here. So you know what? I appreciate Justin, though. Justin almost sold me a little bit there on maybe going with the Atlanta Falcons. But let's go to another game. Boy, there's some real doozies here this week. I mean, this matchup here, to me, I wish if I could skip one, maybe I'd skip this one. And it's the Carolina Panthers and the Arizona Cardinals. Panthers are at home, 2-point favorites, 43.5. You know, the Brute Force, it is shaping up to be that the Arizona Cardinals are going to be big busts this season. That's all I'm going to say. I ain't tipping my hand just yet, but that's all I'm saying. Somebody does have to win this game. At least we think the Brute Force, and Carolina's at home. And what do you think?
Yeah, well, this is going to be an interesting game. First of all, one of the keys to this game is going to be weather. I'm pretty sure that the
Carolina
track is headed up towards Carolina for this game. And it'll be another storm there as well, I think, backtracking that. So there's going to be some rain. It's going to be a little ugly out there, according to what I've heard. But ultimately, I do think that you're being a little harsh, Tom Bryce, a little harsh, because I think the Cardinals are going to win this game. I think the Cardinals, went against a tough LA Rams team last week. I know they didn't perform well. But I think that, they had a spirited comeback against the Raiders earlier in the season. They haven't exactly been annihilated since the Kansas City game. So I do think that they're an inconsistent team. They're not going to be, to your point, they're not going to be one of the top teams this year. I don't think so. Like they had one of the best records through most of the season in the past. They're not going to do that this year. But I do think they'll hover around 500. They'll be a team. I'm trying. Listen, I could be a meteorologist.
You got the work. Anthony Finkel, he really reads my mind. That's why he's known me a long time, because I thought the same thing. The Brute Force. I was like, wow, the Brute Force is almost like is he trying out for the Weather Channel? Did you get an internship at St. Joe's to the Weather Channel or something?
Listen. Sounds like he could be, because he's wrong.
Well, yeah. Justin's right, because they always get it wrong. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was a sunny day. But in the end, I'm still picking the Cardinals to win the game. I think that Kyler Murray will play better than Baker Mayfield in this matchup. And I just think that, again, it'll be another close game back and forth, but the Cardinals will get the final drive, and they'll score, and they'll end up winning the game. So give me the Cardinals in a game that's going to be interesting. Maybe 27-24.
All right, there's the Brute Force Brad Weiss, also with the score and also with weather here, which we get every 20 on the ones here on Sportswire Radio here. But I should probably tell the joke here, which I'm sure Anthony Finkel will get a kick out of. I used to always be told, I don't have really the looks as a weatherman, but I was always told that I could tell the weather because I was always very good with the weather and different things, and I studied it in biology and science. I was actually very good with some of the patterns, but nobody wants to hear that. So nobody wants to hear me give you a weather report. But Justin Gianelli, I want to hear why you think the Brute Force is absolutely wrong when it comes to the Panthers and Cardinals.
Well, not with the game itself.
Okay.
But he's got the weather all wrong. It's going to be 65 and a mix of sun and clouds. Slight chance of a shower. So the weather overall should be fine. Well,
oh God!
I hope not.
Come on, that's insulting. Don't do that.
Come on,
I'm pleading the fifth on that one. I'm pleading the fifth.
We're getting personal now. Now we're getting.
All right, don't worry. He's waiting for the best game of the slot. But go ahead, Justin.
Yeah. All right. So let's put it this way: the Panthers aren't good, and Christian McCaffrey hasn't been practicing much. Remains to be seen if he's going to play. Not sure if he's still on the injury report, if they took him off or not. But the Panthers are just not a great team. The Cardinals are gonna win here, and I think they're gonna win fairly comfortably. Unless it's a real trap game from a standpoint that Carolina is favored by 1 point. I don't really understand why they are the favorites in this game. I think the Cardinals are a much better team, and I think that they're gonna win by 7 to 10 points.
And Anthony Finkel here wants to remind everyone, which I forgot about that. It's a great point, Anthony Finkel. John, didn't you see Brute make the Knicks coaches?
But he was trying. He was on the roster too.
I saw that. I was making everything. I mean, listen, these guys, Chris Bizet, are just trying to get me ready for the NBA season. I am not excited to talk about it.
Not excited.
And now that it's October, it's getting too close. So,
all right. Well, you know what? We'll save that maybe towards the end of the show because we got a few more games here to go with on Sportswire Radio. We got to speed up on the clock. And Chris Bizet, obviously here, Panthers and Cardinals. Somebody has to win. Panthers are at home. Cardinals. What do you think?
I flipped the coin, so I'm gonna go. I'll say Arizona. I just think they're a little bit better team. I guess I trust Kyler Murray a little more than Baker Mayfield. It's I guess I don't know. I don't like either team that much, but if I had to pick one, I'll take Arizona. Might be a sloppy field anyway, just because they got a lot of rain. Even if they don't get any on Sunday, it still should be a little sloppy. But I'll take Arizona. Not by much though.
Yeah, see, I want to go with this on two ways. Part of me says that the first coach to be fired this year will probably be Matt Rule.
Oh, absolutely.
But for whatever reason, and again, I'm probably totally defeating any logic here. I kind of think the Carolina Panthers are going to pull off an upset because I think very well the second coach to be fired could be over with the Arizona Cardinals. So something tells me here, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, Carolina wins this in a field goal. I'd say 24-21, something like that. I mean, again, law of logic tells me the Panthers are a bad football team. And something else tells me that, like I said, the Arizona Cardinals might be one of those teams that certainly were a mirage, which I think a few people called on the show last year. But somebody has to win here, and I'm going to say the Carolina Panthers pull it out here. And Anthony Finkel also says, "We love you, Brute." Yes, we definitely love.
By the way, I'm gonna debunk Chris real quick about the whole messy field. They did just install turf this year, so it probably won't be that bad.
Might be wet.
Yeah, it'd be wet, but it'd probably drain much better.
So, Brad, it's not like the fields we had at St. Joe's then when our soccer and lacrosse teams played. But I'm bump.
Or just think about Soldier Field in Week 1 when the Niners played the Bears.
Oh my God! Listen, oh my God! Please, never bring that game up. That was like, unfortunately, Lions Steelers last year. Remember how brutal that weather was, the brute force in that game? They ended in a tie. Oh, the weather there. But moving on here, as we might say, another matchup here that I actually think will be probably better than the records indicate. That is the Raiders and Broncos. Raiders 2.5-point favorites here. 45.5 is the over/under, and the brute force here. I mean, Broncos have a couple of wins under their belt, and the Raiders certainly are on the ropes right now. But Las Vegas and Denver, what do you think?
Yeah, well, these Raiders are really pissing me off because I pick them almost every week, and they just continue to be that pick that I always get wrong. But I'm going to pick them again. I mean, this is a must-win for them. They cannot lose this game. They're already in deep water, and they might sink if they lose this game. Because if they go 0-4 in that division, they're in big trouble. And they already are. So this is a must-win, especially considering that the other team they're playing is Denver, who is 2-1. But we've watched this Denver team, and boy, have they not looked good in 2 wins. They have not looked good. They won one of the ugliest games in NFL history last week.
Oh, my God. John Gonzalez and I think John Gonzalez's text messages on Facebook to me and direct message were more interesting than that football game. I think he and I were saying things I can't even repeat on the air. That was one of the worst Sunday night games I've ever watched. I have to admit.
That game was horrendous. Their 16-9 win over the Texans was nothing exciting to watch either. So they have not made me want to pick them. There is a part of me that does, because I know the Raiders, we talk about them. They lost to the Titans last week. They have not been impressive either. And certainly they are not using Devontae Adams enough because they have a superstar wide receiver. They need to get him more involved. I do think this week they do that. They do a better job offensively. They're at home in a must-win game. I think they come through 24-21. Raiders.
Anthony Finkel says he's riding with the Raiders, and Justin Gianelli, the Broncos brute force is absolutely right. They have just been a boring football team to watch, unimpressive to say the least. And the Raiders are kind of their usual selves, find ways to lose almost. Almost reminds me of a team that would self-destruct, and that's kind of been the Raider way. But they are at home, and something has to give. 45.5 is the over-under. 2.5 points if the Raiders are favorites. And what do you think, my friend?
The Raiders might be 0-3, but the Raiders are better. I mean, Denver's just not good. They're just an absolute horror show to watch. And Russell Wilson, it looks like he's lost a couple of steps. I just don't think he's the same guy. And I just don't know that they could really go anywhere with him. And he's already got that new contract from the Broncos. So he's basically locked in there for the next several years. But, I'm looking at the Raiders here making this a big opportunity to really get on the board here with this first win. I think the offense has a really big day. I think the Carr to Adams connection has a nice day. He's going to also try to get Darren Waller much more involved as well. And I definitely like the Raiders in this one.
Chris, Raiders again, 0-3 in a precarious spot. And the Broncos, I mean, they have to be one of the most least impressive 2-1 teams I've seen in recent memory. And I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the Raiders get their first win. There's another team they know in that AFC West. They got to get some wins.
Absolutely.
Catch up. So I think they win. Denver, like you said, has just now looked impressive. Justin, you might be right with Russell Wilson. He does not look good. It's pretty crazy, but they just signed him to that big contract too. So
I don't know what's worse, his quarterback play or that new Subway commercial.
God,
the Danger Witch.
That was really uncomfortable to watch. I mean,
oh my God.
I don't know.
I went to Subway Wednesday night, and I thought about that commercial. I'm like, what am I not?
See,
he is not an NFL quarterback. He's a
It's working. Right? It's working, right?
I can't wait till Russell Wilson retires so he can go off in the sunset. I've had enough of Russell Wilson.
Yeah, he's odd, isn't he? He's very odd.
He's an awkward dude.
Yeah, very.
Well,
extremely.
I could talk about some of the things off the field with him, but we are a family station, and I've heard different things, and I'm sure a guy like Anthony Finkel would love me to say those things, but I'm going to plead the fifth on those things because Lord knows I'll speak with somebody.
Carr's another odd dude, too. He's another weird. But anyway, I think the Raiders are going to win. I think they're going to. It might not be a pretty game, but I think the Raiders will win.
And John Gonzalez says Hackett is awful. I couldn't agree with you at all. And you know what? I think the Raiders are going to win this game, and I'm rooting for the Raiders hard to win this game because I think Justin hit the nail on the head. The Raiders, to me, are much better football team than their record, and then I kind of think at home, I think the Raiders 30, the Broncos 20. I just think something tells me here that Raiders get back on track, and this Denver team is really, to me, not at all impressive. And another matchup here, the brute force, that I really think is not going to be too impressive. And obviously the odds makers in Vegas seem to agree. And that's obviously the most lopsided matchup of the week, which about 3 or 4 years ago, you would have never thought that this would have been the case, but it is the case right now, and that is the Green Bay Packers 9.5-point favorites over the New England Patriots, and 40 in it is the over/under. And you do get the feeling here, the Brute Force Brad Weiss, that the Patriots could be in for a long season here, and the Packers get a good win in Tampa, and certainly you would think they would go back to their usual grip in the NFC North. And the Brute Force Brad Weiss, what do you think here in this matchup?
Yeah, this is going to be pretty ugly and just disastrous when it comes to Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Listen, first of all, I'm pretty sure Brian Hoyer is starting this week. That's the first thing I have to say.
Oh, my God.
Which is
you know what, the Brute Force, have you noticed this week that we're seeing quarterbacks that should have no business of being back in the league or starters again? I mean, what's going on here?
It's bad. At this point, maybe I should suit up and try to get a backup job because these quarterbacks. Come on, man. Mm-hmm. But either way, Brian Hoyer starting. And listen, I'm not always a fan of taking those really high spreads, but listen, I believe you said 9.5, Tom.
Yep, it's the biggest one of the week. Yep,
I'm taking it, and I'm taking it confidently with Green Bay because I don't even think the Patriots are going to score 10 points this game. I actually picked them to be the least amount of scoring this week of any team in my picks that I have to do each week. So they will score the least amount of points. I know that the Patriots defense is stout. I know that they can slow down Green Bay a little bit, but they won't be able to do it enough. Green Bay is going to keep getting the ball over and over again. The more you give Rodgers the ball, the more it's going to be worse to the Patriots. So this is going to be real ugly. I'm going to say 31 or maybe 34-10. That's the final.
Yeah, I could certainly see something like that. And Anthony Finkel says, "Go Pack, go." He's always liked the Pack. He's always liked the whole cheese head emoji stuff. And for you, Justin, I mean, to me, this just screams like a lopsided game in Lambeau.
Bloody murder, man. This is not good right now. This is a bad situation for Bill Belichick to be in right now. With Brian Hoyer, a quarterback, obviously the injury to Mac Jones last week, late in the game. This might even be a situation where the over/under sitting at 40. Green Bay might hit that themselves.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's rough, man. It's going to be a bloodbath. Aaron Rodgers smells blood in the water right now, and I think we have our official resident of Blowout City this week.
Oh, I certainly think that could be the case. And John Gonzalez is funny here. Brian Hoyer makes Geno Smith look good. And Carlos Ortoro Chavez says, "How about them Bills?" Yeah, you might want to check out the Bills earlier on in our picks because we picked that game earlier on. But in the meantime, Chris, Packers, Patriots, I mean, looks to me like as one-sided matchup you're going to get this week and maybe in the league all year round. And what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not going to go against any of you guys. I'm with Green Bay winning big, most likely. We might even see their backup Zappy play a little bit in this game too. So I'll say Green Bay. This is an easy one.
Green Bay 35, New England 10. I do think they get a touchdown to Brute Force because they'll probably get one like late in the game or something like that. But this game is going to be just an ugly
little BS touchdown at the end with a minute.
Exactly. That's exactly what I think here. 4:25 p.m. game. If there was ever a game you'd want to change to a 1 o'clock game, this would certainly be the one. But obviously, we have the Sunday night game, the Monday night game, and the two local games before we sign off here. And also wanted to shout out Randy Dillon. I spoke with Randy. We'll get Randy on next week for a few minutes with the start of the NHL season coming up. So I did want to recognize Randy Dillon, but I really wanted to get through with these games. And that brings us then to the Sunday night game, which I thought at first wasn't going to be played, but it looks like at the moment, I think they're going to play again. I'm not a weatherman per se, the Brute Force. You've obviously studied meteorology much more than I have these days. I mean, although I've been told I have the voice for it, but I haven't studied it in at least about 10 or 11 years.
About that, from what I know, as much as the hurricane destroyed Western Florida, I don't think Tampa got it as badly, I will say.
Okay. All right, so let's keep our fingers crossed because obviously we don't want to see anybody get hurt out there, and it's just a terrible, terrible situation. And my heart goes out to people because, again, Superstorm Sandy, I still remember what it was like here and seeing that devastation. I saw it firsthand. I saw the winds right in front of my face. So I always tell that story to people. But in the meantime,
especially Fort Myers, the one recognizable city I saw that got really badly hit.
And in the meantime, though, the Brute Force, let's go on a lighter note. And the Buccaneers Chiefs. Obviously, this is a rematch of the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Mahomes and Brady, kind of like the last 5 years. You think about it in terms of just premier matchups in all the sports. This is pretty much the premier matchup. And the Buccaneers are pretty much as much of a coin toss pick'em game as you're going to get. 45.5 is the over-under. And the Brute Force, what do you think?
Yeah, this is not an easy game to pick. At first I was kind of really confident with my pick, and now I'm starting to reconsider it a little bit, even though I'm going to stick with it. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win this game, and I think it's just simply because, first of all, last week they didn't play well. The Chiefs tend to, after a bad week, come back and have a really good one. Even though I'm going to give credit to the Tampa Bay defense, I think they're going to make life tough for Kansas City. But if there's anyone who's up for the test and who's pretty pissed off about how the Super Bowl went, I think it's Patrick Mahomes. So I think he's out for a little bit of revenge. He will play well in this game. The one thing that concerns me, Tom, is obviously one, always going against Tom Brady, and two, just the fact that this team is going to play for the fans that were affected. There's going to be a little bit of an edge because of what happened. So, the Tampa Bay is going to come out. They're going to play hard. They still are obviously being hit by some injuries. They'll get Mike Evans back from suspension, which will help them. But I don't think it'll help them enough against Kansas City. I was projecting a little bit more of a margin when it comes to the score, but I think it's now going to be a little bit closer than I thought. So I'm going to say 28-24, the Chiefs win.
All right, those are some fair points here. John Gonzalez, Fink will clean up Tampa. He probably could. Listen, anybody that could clean up the debris and the damage, it is certainly our very dear friends over at DPH Property Maintenance and Services. So they could definitely do it. Trust me, they're cleaning up the streets of Brooklyn. Everywhere I go, whether it's by Joshua Bailey's block on 72nd Street now, Anthony Finkel's got property over there. He's got property left and right. So, yeah, I'm with John Gonzalez. But Justin Gianelli, this is a hard game to pick. This is a really, really hard one. There's a lot of history here. I mean, I don't know what to make of these two teams so far, but somebody has to win. And Buccaneers are as a coin toss as you could as a favorite. And what do you think?
I'm going to give Kansas City a slight edge here. I don't like the way the Bucs are playing offense right now. And it's not all on Brady, but that offensive line is an absolute disaster. And the Kansas City Chiefs defense has been pretty good early on, despite losing last week. But they were overall pretty good. It was the offense that kind of stumbled a little bit. It's gonna be a lower scoring game than I think a lot of people think. I think a 23-20 or 20-17 might even get the job done in this game. And I like the Chiefs a slight edge here. I think they'll be able to do enough, make enough plays, and slow down the run game of Tampa to kind of just force Brady to make more plays. And right now, with the offensive line being what it is for Tampa, it's been a little bit more difficult of a rhythm from that Buccaneer offense. So give me Kansas City.
All right, fair enough here. Carlos Arturo Chavez II over at the Mad New Yorker says Brady's last stand, winning it for Florida. Anthony Finkel picking with my heart. Tampa, Florida strong. Chris, I mean, this is as pick'em coin toss game as you're going to get. You flipped a coin earlier. I think it was Panthers Cardinals. You very well do the same for this one. Sunday night game. We think it'll be a good game. A lot on the line. A lot of rivalry history, especially with the two quarterbacks. What do you think?
I think I'm going to go Kansas City. Both teams have played very well defensively so far, but Tampa's offense, Justin said it, their offensive line has been bad. And let's be honest, Brady has not been that good so far. And, we want to say it's because of the offensive line. Evans was out last week, but they just have not played well yet. And maybe the off the field issues are for Brady is starting to seep into on the field as well. He's just human, maybe we're starting to see that part of him now. And I think I'm going to take Kansas City on the road. I'll take them to beat Tampa.
All right, and also let me get to a few more comments before I pick. Tom Brady doesn't lose back-to-back often. Nope. John Gonzalez likes the Chiefs. Carlos says maybe never. And you know what? I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I just think for whatever reason, maybe the home field edge. Bucs defense has been good. I know Brady hasn't been great, but something tells me here if it's a lower scoring affair, I would have to think it's advantage Tampa. In this case, we saw how that kind of played out in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, so I think if it's a low-scoring affair, advantage Tampa, and I think it is going to be that way. And I think Tampa 21, Kansas City 17, something like that. I think that Brady, like Chris said, really hasn't played poorly, but hasn't done anything that we're used to seeing him stat-wise. But I think it's going to be about Tampa's defense that finds a way to do just enough to win here. And that's kind of how I'm going to go out here. And the Monday night game, before we get to the Giants and Jets, 49ers, 1.5-point favorites over the Rams. I mean, I'm a 49ers defender as much as anybody, but I really don't see why the 49ers should be favorites here at home. I'm going to go with the brute force Brad Weiss and figure that one out here. 42 is the over-under. 49ers, as I pointed out, are favorites against the Super Bowl champion Rams. 49ers, though, have had success. I guess maybe that's why in the regular season against the Rams. That might be the only reason why, but certainly after what I've seen from the 49ers, not very impressive. And what do you think?
Yeah, so the one thing that I haven't done, and no one that hasn't noticed, is that the upset alert hasn't came up yet, on the screen. But, with the spread, Tom Bryce, I think that it should be favored in the Rams' direction, even though it's not. But I'm actually picking the 49ers to win this game, and it's a lot because of what you just said, Tom Bryce. It seems that this is like a little bit of a trap here where you see the Rams winning, you see them having success, you saw the 49ers play one of their worst games of the season, and then now they're going to clash, and all of a sudden this is what seems to be happening. And one thing that, Shanahan has done well over the years is beat the Rams. And I think that that's one thing that we can't underestimate here. I don't think this is going to be a pretty game, and I think that plays to San Francisco's favor if it's a little bit of an ugly slop fest in San Francisco on Sunday night. I also know that when these games are played in the primetime games, you want to talk about Kirk Cousins. When it comes to this matchup in prime time, San Francisco has definitely had the edge. So I'm going to give San Francisco this win, even though I'm not overly confident with it. I'm going to say 26-23 on a late field goal. The 49ers win, and their defense is the reason why they hold the Rams off.
John Gonzalez likes the Rams. Anthony Finkel likes the Rams as well. And, Justin, the only reason why I guess I think the 49ers are favorites, other than the whole home field factor, is that the 49ers did handle the Rams very well in the regular season last year. That's all I could think of. But otherwise, they have not looked very impressive. Rams seem to be back on track. But what do you think here in the Monday night game?
The Rams haven't looked great to start the season. Yeah, the 49ers do have a history, especially the 49ers do have a history of beating up on the Rams. And, it's one of the teams that even though the Rams have been really good over the last 6 years since Sean McVay took over, the 49ers have been one trouble spot for Sean McVay. However, with that being said, we just talked about how poorly the Broncos played last week on that garbage Sunday Night Football game. Well, the 49ers played equally as bad, and they were the ones who lost the game. So I don't expect them to change a lot, even though I think in the long run, I think things will get back in order, and they're going to play pretty well and be a playoff contending team because they have a pretty solid defense. And I think Jimmy G will straighten things out. I don't think this is the week, though. I think the Rams are going to come away with the victory here. I think that the Rams are going to be able to do enough. We've seen Cam Akers get back into the mix again after being shunned in week one, basically. The last couple of weeks, he's starting to get a few more carries. and they're kind of, instead of the two horse, you're starting to see more Akers instead of Darrell Henderson, and they're also trying to get Allen Robinson integrated into the offense a little bit more here in his first season with the Rams. You're essentially replacing him replacing Robert Woods with Allen Robinson, and they're a little bit different of players. So it's kind of a different fit. And I think that Sean McVay and the offense is still working out the kinks. And I think they're going to start to get right a little bit here. And I definitely like the Rams to take this game.
All right, let me get to a bunch of comments here. And Shanahan on the hot seat.
I wouldn't go that far.
I think with Trey Lance getting hurt, no way.
They were just in the NFC Championship game last year.
Yeah.
Only so long you can play in that junk system, trash system versus trash system.
No, I like that. I like this system.
This will be so bad. Kickers will decide this game, maybe. And I personally want to give a shout out to the reigning, defending Wrestling Championship Entertainment Interstate Openweight Champion, the unhinged James Marshall, for tuning in, who I think has had some car issues of note. So I certainly hope that the champ has had his automobile issues fixed or near to be fixed. Obviously, shout out as always to James Marshall. And you can follow Wrestling Championship Entertainment on Facebook anytime at WCE Heat and WCEHeat.com. For more information on our friends over at Wrestling Championship Entertainment, Fight or Fright 2 is coming up next weekend, and we will be recapping that as well on Sportswire Radio. But Chris, 49ers Rams, we've all talked about it. 49ers are small favorites. I don't know why, but what do you think?
I like the Rams to win this game, only because you got to remember Jimmy G had no practice. He had no preseason, right? Mm-hmm. Last week basically was his first full game, first start. So I think it's going to take him a couple of weeks to really get going, and I don't think he's going to get going yet, to get back into it. And you got to remember also, too, he's got a new offensive coordinator he's working on. I know it's the same system, but now you got a new offensive coordinator, right? Because McDaniel went to Miami. Mm-hmm. So I think you got a little bit going on there. I think San Fran's going to take another week or two to really get themselves in gear, especially with the new OC. You got not a new quarterback, but you got Jimmy G coming back, and he's just back, So I think the Rams win this game. I think it's going to be close, but I think the Rams will win it, 23-20 or something.
As much as I want to pick the 49ers because the regular season last year said advantage 49ers, Rams kind of correct the ship a little bit. Maybe there is some turmoil in San Francisco more than we realize, but they also started the year I believe, 1-3 and made the postseason, so maybe that's still in the works, but I think it will be Rams 27, 49ers 17. And we'll hear, maybe to Carlos's point, some more issues when it comes to the 49ers, especially internally. But let's get to the two local games here before we get to closing thoughts here tonight. And let's go to, of course, our New York Football Giants here first. The brute force Brad Weiss in one of the more not so memorable games this coming week and maybe for the season. These two teams are going to be, and I believe this is the lowest over-under thread here of the entire week, 39.5. Giants are a field goal favorites at home against the Bears. Bears are 2-1 for what that's worth. Giants are 2-1, but certainly had their issues in protecting the quarterback this past Monday. And if that's going to be the key, the brute force, I think the Giants are in for some problems. And what do you think here in the Giants and Bears?
Yeah, well, I'm going to just start by saying this. All right. You want to talk about 2-1 teams that shouldn't be 2-1. Here's another one. And that is the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears stink. They're horrible. All right. They're not a good team. I think that they are in that category of those low teams as well. But it's kind of like being not shown because of their record, right? They beat the
right.
in an ugly game. They won that slop fest we talked about earlier in that rain, disgusting day that they won. All right. I mean, they haven't done anything to knock your socks off, and they're certainly not good. Meanwhile, the Giants, on the other hand, I know they didn't have their best performance last week, but I give credit to the Cowboys for that reason. for the reason why the Giants didn't play that well, because the Cowboys have a great defense. The Cowboys, like we talked about earlier, have a guy in Cooper Rush who simply didn't make mistakes, who made plays when he needed to make them. And I thought that game was not a bad game in regards to the game itself. I thought the Giants gave themselves a chance. They just couldn't make more plays than the Cowboys. So this week against a stinky Bears team, like I said, they shouldn't be 2-1. They're going to win this game, and I think the Giants are going to win it relatively comfortably. I think they'll win by around the 10 to 14 point range because the Bears stink. And I think that, people are starting to get excited about them a little bit when there's really nothing to be excited about. They're not a good football team.
Well, we'll certainly see here, and let me get to a bunch of comments in here. And Carlos Ortoro Chavez says, "Don't call me a quarterback, dimes." Anthony Finkel says, "Big blue," and he also gives the blue emoji. If Justin Fields throws 150 plus, they can upset the Giants. I'm with John Gonzalez. What's with the Tucker Weiss Giants reference here? Boy, he's got
you just wait till the next one, John.
Right below the belt on that one.
We gotta get to we'll get to it. Stinky Bears team laughing my ass off. This again will be a game determined by the team's leading scorers on both teams, the kickers. Good one there, Carlos. And then moving on here, because we had some interesting comments. You could tell we're nearing the witching hour, because they always say, for those that are listening, the witching hour is between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. We're moving close to that point. Justin, save us here. Giants, Bears. Giants are a field goal favorite. 39.5 is the over-under. What do you think?
This game's going to set football back 50 years is what's going to happen. It's going to be the ugliest display of football I think I've ever seen. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there's not going to be a single touchdown scored in this game.
Wow.
You're looking at like a 12-6 kind of game, like a 12-9 kind of game. Like, this is just incredibly bad. The Bears are a horrendous offense. The Giants, they're not much better. The one thing that they got going for them is that they have Saquon Barkley, and the Bears will be missing David Montgomery in this game. And that's going to be a huge loss because David Montgomery has been the guy that Justin Fields can lean on in the running game to kind of save. He's only thrown like 45 passes in 3 games. It's just incredible how little they trust Justin Fields.
That was the Patriots last year with Jones. That was the same model.
And Khalil Herbert, I don't think can have the same effect. I like the Giants here. Again, give me something really ridiculously low, like 15-9 or something like that. It's gonna be a disaster.
Oh my God! So you're telling me I should just basically sleep through the game?
I wouldn't watch this game. I would not watch this game.
Yeah, no.
I hear Chad Powers is coming back. Think fast, run fast, running a 5.49. That's right, 5.49. Chris, help us out here. Giants, Bears. This game has all the makings of just a disaster.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. It's going to be a disaster. Giants should win. If they lose this game, they should go pack it up and just forget about the rest of the season. But the Giants should win this game. What bothers me about the Bears, like, how do you entrust Luke Getsy, right, as your offensive coordinator to guide your prized draft pick in Justin Fields, right? I don't understand it. This guy's, I had to look him up because I'm like, who is the OC there? He was the passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach for the Packers the last 3 years. And before that, he was the OC for the Mississippi State Bulldogs for 1 year. Before that, he's with the Packers, wide receivers coach. And go further back, he was with Division II. So I'm like, why would you entrust a guy like that to be, like the mentor for Justin Fields? Your supposedly franchise quarterback or hopeful franchise quarterback. Didn't make sense to me. But anyway, it's showing because the guy's got 23 completions for this season so far in 3 weeks. 23. That's what average quarterbacks do in one game, let alone 3 weeks. So it's going to be an awful game. I mean, I think the Giants, I would say the Giants are going to win big. I don't know how, but they're going to win big somehow. I'll say like 20-7, 20-10.
The only reason I'm going to go with the Giants is because I think Saquon Barkley is poised for a big year. Even though the Shepard injury worries me a bit, Galladay I'm just not crazy about. Even Daniel Jones with the offensive line, but something tells me here that's the X factor. Barkley's poised for a big year. He's in the walk year. I see for whatever reason Giants get it done. I don't know, 17-10, 17-13 over the Bears. This will just be, I think we've all said pretty much in the same range here in terms of just football game. Listen, I would rather find a marathon. One of my friends, Erzin Krifka, is a marathon runner. I'd probably rather watch him run a marathon for 3.5 hours, just running all day instead of watching this game. Shout out to Erzin as always. But Giants win. I do think the Giants are not a bad football team. They're certainly better than the Bears. And if they're going to be a much improved team, this would be the game on the calendar that they should win it. We're going to get to that, Carlos. We're going to get to all that here. And Chef Galladay Soup of the day, football drop soup. That was a good one, Carlos. That was a good one for sure. And the last game here, I don't know if we've saved the best for last, the Brute Force, but we definitely saved the biggest for last because I'm waiting here for something. Because something tells me here because you had a clue for this. You had a clue for this, so I know what's coming. So obviously, you know I'm talking about
Who's favorite?
our beloved Pittsburgh Steelers against our other beloved football team, the New York Jets, and the Steelers are 3.5-point favorites here at home. 41.5 is the over/under. The Brute Force, tell us why you're picking the New York Jets.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can't wait. Oh, come on, John Gonzalez. Give me some nonsense already. Because I know, the steel curtain and Trubisky and all this nonsense. Oh, please. All right? The Steelers stink. I repeat, the Steelers stink. They're horrible. All right? They deserve to be in a conversation with those bad teams that we talked about earlier, like the Falcons and the Seahawks. They are bad. All right? This is not a good football team. Now, with all that being said, all right, I know everybody's going to be like, oh, well, Zach Wilson is coming back. You know, we don't know what to expect, all these different things. But I know what to expect from the Steelers. I'll tell you one thing. They stink, and they're not going to get the job done. All right? They're not – talk about teams that might not score a touchdown this week. They might not score a touchdown. All right? I think the Steelers – you know, they're not going to show anything. The Jets' defense, even though it hasn't been amazing, has actually been respectable. And I think they'll do a good enough job to hold the Steelers and Trubisky down. Trubisky will throw a couple interceptions to add on to that because it sounds like he's going to play. They haven't made any indication that they're going to move on from him. So listen, the Jets will do enough. Zach Wilson will make some nice throws. I'm actually confident that the Jets will get some offense going with Zach Wilson. It'll excite us, and it'll definitely excite me because nothing will make me feel better than the Jets beating the Pittsburgh Steelers and proving me right that they'll be 2-2 to start the season, and those damn Steelers are headed for the season. And I told you, Tom Bryce, I told you they were nowhere close to 10 wins, and this will be the start to their epic collapse that they continue to fall on as they lose to the New York Jets.
Boy, you were waiting for this, and I knew what I was doing tonight on Sportswire Radio. And certainly, John Gonzalez, boy, I think he's really punishing you, the Brute Force. He is certainly punishing you here with the Tucker, where's your now tie, calm down. So he's really upset about the whole Steelers pick. So I'll give my 2 cents at the end. And Carlos says, Brute. There are a few teams that are terrible in this league, and the Jets have a few years in that category. But
yes,
League Corso, maybe not this year. And Justin Gianella, we've got a lot of people still tuned in tonight, and certainly people want to hear us speak football, and that's always a good thing. And Steelers, Jets, and I don't know how you follow up the Brute Force, but you're gonna have to try.
Yeah, excuse me here, and if you're confident in picking the Jets, you're out of your damn mind. I don't see any scenario where the Jets win this football game. Why? It's simple. It starts with the coaching. It starts with Robert Saleh not being able to hold the jockstrap of Mike Tomlin. It's how bad the Jet defense has looked through the first 3 weeks of the season. Yes, they won a miraculous game over the Cleveland Browns. They were down 30-17 with 1:30 to go. This defense looked horrendous. Their coaching, Jeff Ulbrich, it might be one of the worst defensive coordinators I've ever seen. Miscommunication after miscommunication. Not knowing who to cover. I have not seen anything from this Jets team that makes me believe that they can win this football game. And you know what? They might be missing TJ Watt. But you know what? That Steeler defense is still respectable. And I don't expect Mitch Trubisky to do much. I don't. I think this is going to be another one of those very low-scoring football games. I do. And you know what? I'm calling it right now. Minkah Fitzpatrick, pick six. Minkah Fitzpatrick, pick six. They're going to score on defense. They will. And I think that's what's going to make the difference. One of the things that the Jets don't do, they don't take the ball away. When do the Jets ever win the turnover battle? They don't. I don't expect Mitch Trubisky to play well. I don't. But I think Najee Harris is going to have a solid game. I think running the football, they'll be okay. You know what?
Let's go. Let's go.
Some people, listen, there are some people out there that certainly they believe in a higher power. Now, there is a higher power out there. I'm a reverend. I can tell you there is, but there are some people like my dear brother, my dear friend, Anthony J. Finkel. That's one that you really must be believing in something right now.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to go with Steelers 16, Jets 6 in this game.
Ooh, good.
What I'm going to say is Zach Wilson can score more with his friend's mom than he will against this Pittsburgh defense.
Wow, you know what? Listen, I'm pleading the fifth, though, because we've got one guy who's saying Tucker Carlson. Anthony Finkel using mama references. You're using them. I'm pleading the fifth on all
When
that
did we
stuff.
get X-rated on this show?
I tell you what. I know in England they've compared me to Howard Stern with the looks, but I'm certainly the complete opposite of that. I'm just trying to do the best I can here. I told you we're near the witching hour. John Gonzalez is fired up. Justin, you really fired up John Gonzalez. Justin, my main man. Chris, help us out here. Steer us
All right, we got to make this make sense.
Steelers, Jets, you're going to give us an informed opinion. Tell us what happens.
To me, this is a big, humongous week for the Jets coaching staff. Forget about the players for a second.
Absolutely.
Huge. After this past week with Quinnen Williams screaming at the coach on the sidelines, and then you got this week Ulbrich kind of throwing him under the bus with his press conference, trying to prove why he only plays 60% of the snaps, which is stupid for a 24-year-old. But anyway, I think this is a big week for the coaching staff because they got to prove themselves. They got to prove that they're legit. You know, like you said, Justin, they've been out-coached like too many times. They have 5 wins in their first 20 games.
5-15, right?
Yeah, 5 wins in their first 20 games. That's ridiculous.
Even in the 5 wins, can you say he's out-coached?
No.
Anybody? Oh, you didn't out-coach Kevin Stefanski in that win. They luckily blew a lead.
Right. That was just a lucky win. That's all that was.
I don't put any of that loss on the coaching staff. That's all on the Browns defense just collapsing late.
Right. So, I mean, but I look at the Steelers and I'm like, how are they scoring points with Mitch Trubisky? They have no running game. You're not going to be able to pass. So, unless Pittsburgh's defense, and that's not even been that good this year because now you got TJ Watt's out. So, I mean, it's going to be an ugly game, but I think the Jets are going to pull it out. I don't know how, but I could see the Jets pulling it out more than I could see the Steelers pulling it out just because the Steelers got nothing on offense.
The only issue is the Jets are the get-right game. Anytime you're struggling and you need a lift, well, let's play the Jets.
Right.
Boom, you're back on track.
But the Steelers are never going to be on track with Trubisky. You know, I think this is just a matter of time before it takes over.
I will say
who knows how good he's going to be.
I will say I am surprised that they didn't make the switch to Kenny Pickett. I thought the mini bye of 10 days after the Thursday night game with Cleveland, I really thought that was a good spot to little soft landing spot. And again, a soft landing spot because you're playing the Jets. Like,
hey, let's be honest. This might be the game that finally gets them to go to Pickett. Maybe Pickett comes in late in the game and pulls the game out, right?
Hey,
That's
look,
a possibility.
we saw it. Now, for different reasons, we saw it because of injury. We saw 4 or 5 years ago when Tyrod Taylor gets hurt and Baker Mayfield comes in. Baker Mayfield sparks the Browns and they beat the Jets. Kenny Pickett, I do think, is capable of doing that. Now, whether Mike Tomlin's going to stick to his guns with Mitch Trubisky, I don't know how much longer that's going to last. But I think they're going to slightly have just enough. I really do.
And you know what? And after hearing all the deliberations between Anthony Finkel and the Jets' 30-point win, the brute force Brad Weiss and the upset alert and Justin Gianelli and Chris, at the end of the day, the Steelers are at home. The Steelers, to me, have the edge on coaching. I still think it's a formidable team defensively. I don't think by any stretch either quarterback on both sides of the ball is very good. I don't think either team is very good offensively. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the law of logic. So I'm going to still stick to the point that the Pittsburgh Steelers will have a slight edge here over the Jets. I do think it'll be, again, one of those not so exciting games to watch, kind of what the brute force said in line of what we saw with the Giants and Bears. And I think Pittsburgh, 17, Jets 10. I do think the Jets will be in it. I think the Jets will be competitive. But at the end of the day, it's hard for me to fathom Pittsburgh at home losing with the Jets. Even with Trubisky, I agree, Trubisky's not that great. I agree that this is a Pittsburgh team. Even if I still think he's going to get to 10 games, they're going to struggle because offensively right now they're hurting in quarterback. But I still think, law of logics, if I match everything up, Pittsburgh has a small edge, and I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers will find a way for now to salvage the season here. And John Gonzalez says, I've seen enough of Saleh. He's a really bad coach. And John, that's why I'm picking the Pittsburgh
you know what? I'm not far off with him, man. I really think
that's why I'm for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. I think the Steelers win.
I got to tell you, I think we're heading for another 4 or 5 win season. I think Saleh's going to be fired at the end of the year. I really do.
If the Jets lose Sunday 1-3 with the schedule coming up, I mean, we're definitely looking at a season that we're on the ropes. But if the Jets do win Sunday,
I don't know if they would fire Saleh. You can't. I don't know if you could fire him after 2 years because you just did that with Gase. If you keep doing that, who's going to want to come here?
But he showed you.
I agree. I'm not.
I heard this talk on the radio, and I believe that he'll get another crack. But if they do go to 5 wins, Justin, listen, we talked about this last year when we took calls on Sportswire Radio. If the Jets don't get it right, the fan base is going to be frustrated. All of us are going to take comments.
Think about it, though. If they go 5-12 this year, if the Jets go 5-12 this year, that means Robert Saleh is 9-25 as the head coach. Tell me what deserves a third year out of that? Nothing. What? Oh, no, but 1 win. No. It's over.
No, but what are you gonna? No, but if you keep firing coaches, nobody's gonna want to come here. That's my point. You just got through Gase
coordinator though. But stop hiring.
That's what I can see.
You got to find a veteran coach. You know what?
I could see Olbrich getting fired.
The worst that could happen is the answer is no. But if I'm Woody Johnson, before Jerry Jones fires Mike McCarthy, I call Sean Payton immediately.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I would call him and say, would you want to take over? And if he agrees and he'll say, okay, but I got to be GM or I got to bring my own guys in, say, no problem. I would give that guy a blank check and say, you're going to run my.
I would first ask him your thoughts on Zach Wilson. Do you think that this is a guy, because you worked with a guy in Drew Brees who was short, a shorter quarterback. And, obviously Zach has a lot more mobility than Drew ever had, but, a guy who could work with a quarterback. And, Brees, even though he was a veteran, in 06 when he came to New Orleans, he was not all that great in San Diego. It really
he was okay.
It was the takeoff in New Orleans with Sean Payton that really developed Brees into that quarterback that he became the Hall of Famer that he is. So,
well, I think before we get to closing thoughts here, I do think that if the Jets struggle this year, Justin's not wrong at all. You
can't justify a third year.
And listen, you know that if we're in week 11 and the Jets are 2-8, you know that we're going to be talking about this the whole. It's unfortunately that's the way to go. It is in New York.
They're probably going to be 2-8.
That's why I said if they don't win here with the schedule coming up,
John.
they're in.
Stop.
I think the brute force. I think that John Gonzalez definitely likes you a lot, and I think that he's definitely ribbing you throughout the show because I noticed the Tucker Carlson references, the Ty references, the James Dolan references. I think the brute force. Let your heart not be troubled. I think that.
Listen, I know. Listen, we love ourselves some John Gonzalez, but
yes, we do. And the Sports Authorities group. Please make sure you follow them on Facebook.
Correct. And listen, he's just getting excited because his favorite part of this show is Dolan time, and he knows the season is coming, and there's going to be Dolan time.
Hey, preseason games, TNT this week coming up. It even made me think about going to some games this year.
Do you have to watch a preseason game?
I'm not watching, Chris. I'm going to try not to. I mean,
that's torture, I think.
I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you, Chris, Tom and Chris. I mean, I was watching a Washington Wizards Golden State Warriors game over in Japan. That was a preseason game.
Yes, NBA I saw some of that.
And that just depressed me more about the Knicks because the Wizards look better than them. So there's another team.
Well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that probably in another week for sure. We will definitely get into all of that here for sure. We'll see. Obviously, preseason games are coming up. You can see all that on TNT, ESPN. You can see it on Yes. You can see a number of different places. We'll speak about that for sure next week here. And I also want to get to that. Justin will be right back. But we're closing the show soon anyway, so we'll get to closing thoughts from everybody else beforehand because, as I said, we're getting close to the witching hour. And certainly we have run the gauntlet here on Sportswire Radio. We've picked all the games here in the NFL this week, and certainly the Brute Force will update his standings each and every Friday for us to see how some of us are doing and, well, how some of us, like myself, aren't doing so well, but we're all bunched up right now, which is kind of cool. So we're only separated really by a few games. Justin says it's a game and a half. Some say it's 3 games like the Brute Force. He's separated from Chris, who's in the leaderboard right now. But we'll get into all of that here shortly on Sportswire Radio. And John Gonzalez also wants to add here very quickly, Brute can't wait for Julius Randle back at MSG. Julius Randle happy hour shows start very, very soon, the Brute Force. They start very, very soon. But until then, we will get into closing thoughts. And let's come back to Justin Gianelli. Justin, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug, share, say. And I can't thank you enough. I enjoyed the baseball banter shows as always. I know John occupied you, Stewart, for one of the shows this past week that we played on Sportswire Radio and sportnarium.com/player. So I turn it over to you, my friend. The floor is yours and fire away.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Thank you guys for another great week. So John's back again because before we went on tonight, we recorded for about an hour while we were watching the Mets and Yankees simultaneously. Unfortunately, the one time I was at Citi Field watching the Mets and Marlins, that's the night Judge hit the home run instead of us trying to record almost every night. But we're still waiting on 62. Obviously, he's sitting on 61 home runs right now. But, we did talk a little bit of the playoff picture and some of the conversation around the real record and what we feel, how we view the record. Do we view the record as 61 or do we view it as 73? And so John and I went a little bit back and forth on that. So that's part of the episode as well. We're going to try this again, even though we have continued to lose. We're going to continue to pump out these locks of the week. And I can start with lock number 1 being the under 39.5 between Giants and Bears.
Yeah.
I don't know where you see 40 points being scored.
Yeah.
Honestly. I really don't. I don't know where you see 40 points being scored. I also do like in that same game over 30.5 Daniel Jones rushing yards in that game.
Yeah, he ran a lot on Monday. That's a good one. That's a good one.
And number 3, we're going to go with the over 51 in Bills Ravens. So those are the 3 locks of the week. Obviously, you can follow me on Twitter at JGNLE12. You can follow me on the Baseball Banter Twitter page at BBallBanterSM. Again, the new I'm gonna edit everything and put it up for tomorrow because it's in my recording, and it'll be ready to be uploaded tomorrow morning. So, and probably one next week as well. Obviously, we'll see what happens with the rest of this Mets and Braves series. So
certainly don't remind us when it comes to the Mets. Do not remind us, certainly. But you'll cover all of it. You'll definitely cover all of it. I'm looking forward to the Baseball Banter, all the great things that you do for us. Really enjoyed the shows and really enjoy all of your great work on behalf of Sportswire Radio. Certainly the shows here, I get a lot of great feedback on, and you've been an instrumental part of it here. You're pretty much here with us now for over a year, so I really appreciate your 1 year with the family here on Sportswire Radio.
By the way, talk about a dramatic ending. Cal Raleigh, the catcher for the Mariners, hits a walk-off home run that officially clinched their first playoff berth in 21 years.
I'll tell you what, another point of history here on Sportswire Radio. Where were you on technically October 1st to just after midnight? The Seattle Mariners here returned to the postseason for the first time since 2001, and that was the team that had won 116 games in the regular season, powered by the likes of Brett Boone and Ichiro Suzuki and Mark McLemore, Freddie Garcia, Jamie Moyer. I mean, that was just a team for the ages. Sasaki, I believe, was the closer, had 50-something saves, and that was a very, very special team. I remember that very, very well, my childhood years of 2001, but now those years are no longer thought about because the 2022 Seattle Mariners, this is your moment, this is your team. Congratulations to all those fans, long overdue, and we certainly look forward to them being a participant in the 2022 Major League Baseball postseason.
Which leaves the Phillies left as the longest drought. Their last playoff appearance
was 2011.
And obviously right now they're sitting in a playoff position, but right now they're no guarantee. We've seen it right now the way they've played lately. They've had 2 5-game losing streaks out of the last 14
games. They've had a wild run, the Phillies. They've had a really, really streaky season.
They're such a roller coaster, honestly. So we'll see what happens with them, or else if they don't make the playoffs, they go into the offseason with the longest postseason drought now that the Mariners have made it.
Well, you know what? Then that's a franchise there with an owner that's certainly he's trigger happy to be with, and we'll find out for sure. We'll see what happens next week. Chris, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug, share, say. I can't thank you enough for all you do for us here on Sportswire Radio, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Great show, guys. Thank you very much. As always, had a great time. Me and Patrick should be on we're doing some kind of a joint show with Pinstripe Chronicles on Wednesday, I think. Yeah, just like a playoff preview type of thing. But we're going to do our own thing on Monday as usual. We'll, kind of end the season type of show. And then Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll do the Liftoff Jet show with Sharman. Hopefully recapping a Jets victory against Pittsburgh. But other than that, you could catch the show at Talking Rivals, at Liftoff Jets on Twitter. You can catch myself at CP7NY on Twitter. And that's about it, man. Looking forward to the season ending and the postseason starting, man. It should be a good one.
Absolutely. And Anthony Finkel, closing thought, avocado is a fruit, not a vegetable. They are considered a single-seeded berry. The more you know. You know what that means? As I pointed out, the witching hour is nearby. When you see closing thoughts like that, that means that those are certainly coming to the end. And we thank Anthony Finkel for his support and friendship and wise words, because the witching hour is nearby. But be that as it may, all that is thrown out of the wayside, because we certainly, while we didn't save the best for last, we definitely saved the biggest for last. He certainly knows the drill by now. We are talking about the brute force Brad Weiss. His eyes lit up there. He certainly gave us that $1 million smile that we do, all the great things that he does for us here on Sportswire Radio. So I turn it over to you, my friend. I would like to give you the floor. any closing thoughts, and fire away.
Yeah, thank you guys for another great week of the show. Chris, Justin, of course, thank you guys. Always fun talking, of course, football and baseball, and soon to be basketball will be fun in a way and not fun in another way. But, we'll see when it gets there. But since it is October 1st, it is an interesting time, but I'll get to that here in a moment. Before I do that, of course, my social media is at bweiss20 on Instagram, at bradweiss20 on Twitter, and searching Bradley Weiss on Facebook. So like I said, it is October, which marks my birthday month. So I needed a good first thing to do when it comes to your birthday month, and that's get a fresh cut. Of course, when I always talk about my fresh haircuts, I always give.
I know where this is going.
Sal the Barber. You can follow him.
Yeah, I know.
At Sal the Barber 91, gave me a nice cut for the October month. As we also get close to Tom Bryce. To November, No Shave November, which I do participate in. So
I think I've been a willing participant in that, right?
Yeah, listen, I do it in November, so that's coming soon.
Wow.
But the month of October will be a lot of fun. Like Chris said, with postseason baseball, obviously we hope that our New York Mets finish this Braves series off strong, move on. And like I said, it's a sense of urgency that we need to see. It's sense of urgency and not a state of an emergency, but a state of urgency. I said that earlier in the show. When it comes to football, I certainly want to give a shout out to these guys. I put them up this week, and that's the guys over at the Sportzwire podcast.
Absolutely.
My guy James Cronin amongst the rest of the crew. They've been very supportive of us, so I'm definitely going to give it to them. You can follow them, of course, as you can see, on their social media platforms. I personally like to watch them on YouTube. You can find them there at Sportzwire Podcast, where you can see a great show. They talk all the latest with football. So looking forward to listening to them. And
we got to get the guys on one of these. As we get into the season, we got to see if the guys can come on. I think that would be cool because we do the NFL.
I know Cronin wants to, so I'll get him on for sure.
Yeah, we'll do that.
And speaking of guys, we're going to get on soon. Thanks to Jesse Winter and Level Up for their support, not only of myself, but of the show as well. We're hoping to have Jesse on here soon. You can follow us at levelup_LI. We're starting our fall-winter season this weekend, so I'm excited for that. Also, with basketball, I'll stay on that note. I want to give a shout-out to our SJLI Golden Eagles. Today, October 1st, marks the elite camp for all the recruits. My buddy and the guy who I've trained for many years, James DeSimone, will be there representing Clark High School and trying to get to St. Joe's potentially, and many other great faces. So I want to give a shout out to them on that. And also, while we're talking about it, Tom Bryce, the men's basketball team actually hired a new assistant today. His name is Errol Danian. And if I say it wrong, I apologize.
Well, thankfully, it's not Joe Mantesta they hired, but I'm bummed.
But Errol Danian.
I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for that one, trust me, but that had to be thrown out there. That's all.
I like you say, I plead the fifth on that. But Errol Danian is one of the new assistants at St. Joe's. I want to give him a shout out on AJ Uhl's staff with the aforementioned Joe Mantesta. So they'll be the staff there this season. But, certainly it's going to be an exciting time for St. Joe's. They're bringing back a lot of great guys, and it'll be fun to see them in the elite camp. And also, as I'm actually going to be coaching this weekend at SUNY Farmingdale on the high school level, I'll be there in a few months to also watch them play. So I'm looking forward to that and many other great things in the world of sports. So I think that's all I got tonight, and it's certainly a late night tonight, but it was a great night of talking some football, some basketball, so it was well worth it, and I thank you guys for another great week of the show.
Absolutely, and I know that we are getting close to the witching hour, and I have a Snickers in my hand, so that tells you how close we are. But a few things I do want to say, and obviously, as always, we kid here. We love everything that all the coaches do at St. Joseph's for our New York now Golden Eagles. Love Coach Mantesta. Love Coach, obviously, Uhl and the entire staff and the entire program. But I did also want to point out that certainly we have a sad loss to the alumni and the family, which I did want to very quickly mention, obviously, for those that have been impacted. I know, of course, our very good friend Ryan McNeely, Coach Ryan McNeely, certainly Ryan McNeely was impacted by this very deeply, and that was, of course, former coach to the program, Joe Minacci, who coached for us from 1992 to 2001, and certainly he was a huge product to the teams before. The man that many consider to be the greatest coach in the program's history, John Matejko. Of course, he was here, Coach Minacci, for about 9 years, and certainly he passed away at the age of 75. And I want to make sure that his family hears that we certainly do want to remember him and his life and his passing. Also was a huge part of the basketball program here in Suffolk County, also taught in the school system for almost 40 years. Great guy, did a lot for the program, and certainly I just want to make sure that his family knows that we're thinking about him on Sportswire Radio. And obviously, Coach McNeely, the McNeely family means a lot to us, the Brute Force. Obviously, Ryan and his wife and everybody there. Obviously, we want to make sure that we remember and acknowledge certainly Coach Minacci, and obviously their son is a part of the team as well. So I just wanted to make sure that his thoughts are with us here on Sportswire Radio. Anything I can do, please let me know. And also, speaking on a lighter note, the Brute Force, you mentioned Jesse Winter, and I believe that we might have a date possibly this coming Thursday here. If Mr. Winter would like to agree and hears this when I play it, it might be a good time to hear from him and talk about a program you're involved with called Level Up. That will be in the afternoon this coming Thursday. So if Mr. Winter is available, I think it would be a good time to speak about all the things that Level Up does. And you can follow Level Up Long Island at levelup_Long Island. And certainly Coach Winter has done a phenomenal job. Certainly Junior Knicks and D2 AAU champions, and levelupli.com is where you can find out more information. Of course, levelup_Long Island on Instagram is where you can find out more information on the AAU travel program for basketball and competitive teams, training for all ages, skills, and levels. And we know that the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, is a huge part of that. Kelly Dempsey has been a part of that here. So certainly you can see some photos of the Brute Force there. Go follow that. And maybe, just maybe, Jesse Winter will be with us. But I also, before we get out of here, want to make one more announcement. This is a big one because I really promised this individual that I would announce it before I got off the air. And that is, of course, the legendary Brute Force. You'll remember this name, Danny Burns from the Brooklyn College, the Bulldogs, the men's basketball team. The team is finally being honored this coming December here, December 2nd, before Lehman. They are going to be recognized because it's the 40th anniversary of the team, one of the last teams in the tri-state area to have made the NCAA Final Four, the then D3 Final Four, which led the Brooklyn College men's basketball team to eventually play Division I for a while. And Danny's going to talk about that with us live here on October the 15th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll get Danny's story here live and the whole program and Coach Reiner and my very good friend, Mr. Ed De La Guardia. Of course, Eddie De La Guardia has been a longtime resident of Staten Island. I know his family since I'm a baby, so I'm looking forward to speaking to Danny Burns and having Danny on once again to remember this huge milestone here again. That was a special team. Rick the Rejector Davis and Ronnie Phillips, and obviously Coach Reiner, who's looking down on us, and Coach Richie McAuliffe. I know you know him very well, the Brute Force, who coached the 2016 team to the NCAA tournament many years later, the school's all-time leading scorer. So all great stuff there. Danny Burns will be with us October the 15th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk about so many things you definitely are going to want to tune. That's almost the unofficial kickoff for the college basketball season on Sportswire Radio. That is going to be our kickoff for the season, the official kickoff for college basketball on Sportswire Radio, October the 15th, with Danny Burns to talk about the Brooklyn College team, that legendary team that went all the way to the NCAA tournament as an at-large team, and they were quite a team. We'll get into all that. I'm looking forward to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everybody that is tuned in. I want to thank my very dear friend Anthony Finkel from DPH Property Services. I want to thank John Gonzalez from the Sports Authorities Group, Joey Bostrom, who made a cameo appearance. Also, Justin Gianelli from the Baseball Banter Show, Chris Pizzea from the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals, the Brute Force Brad Weiss here from the Level Up Long Island Basketball Organization, Long Island Nets, LI Brew Crew, if that's a thing, Plainview JFK Hawks Boys JV team, SJC New York Golden Eagles men's basketball team. And I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you were on sportnarium.com/player, you have gone back to your regularly scheduled programming. If you were on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn, I thank you for tuning in. I will be back Monday, 8 p.m. British Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, with the lawman, Kyle Kennedy, Mr. Sportswire himself. You won't want to miss it. He will have an announcement. You'll definitely want to tune in. But in the meantime, thank you, everybody. Good night, good afternoon, good morning. Be safe. And if you are out there in the state of Florida or anywhere in the United States that is being impacted by Hurricane Ian, please be safe. Please be out there and stay safe. Use your caution, your good judgment. Anything you can do, please let us know. I'll do my best to help. But in the meantime, thank you, everybody. Good night. Stay safe. Stay well on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.